All right, she's ticking.
All right.
Yeah. How was the trip coming in? Good?
Good. Yeah, it's fun. It's a nice area, Dixon.
You had not been before, correct?
No. Yeah, people here are like very kind.
How long was the drive, was it?
I think it's probably like a 5.5 hour drive.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, duh, because we just did it, right? Yeah. We did it for the wedding.
That's right, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't remember
Actually,
how long.
that was a further drive, though, for the wedding.
I couldn't remember.
A lot further than if you were to come up to where I'm at, so. But we went to Chicago first last night and 2 nights ago with the kids and everything. And
kids had a blast?
Yeah, it was fun. You know, it's tough, I think, with kids. My wife and I had gone there before and had a blast. And this is still a lot of fun, but it's like you're dealing with like hunger and tired and everything else.
And the heat.
The heat, yeah.
Yeah.
And parking, just finding parking is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, well, dude, I really appreciate, and I hope they had a great time. I really appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for having me down and allowing the family to tag along. So. Yeah,
well, let me introduce you real quick. Joshua Shores.
Yeah, Josh. Yeah,
Prefer Josh.
Yeah.
Marine, Iraq, Afghanistan. We got some firefighter in there, entrepreneurship, and author.
Yeah.
Here to talk about the book.
That's me.
That's
in a
it.
Yeah. You did it.
Yeah. Nailed it. Nailed it. Well, I want to get into the book right away, and because there's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about. I read it, and obviously thank you very much for giving me the review, copy. It's almost like where to begin, What made you, and I read it, so it's kind of a, rhetorical question, but like what inspired you? Why did you want to write this?
Well, so I started writing it in like end of 2008, end of 2009, into 2009, somewhere in there when I was doing some therapy at the VA. Mm-hmm. And they wanted me to do like this group session and everything. And I said, like, that's just not for me. I don't want to do a group session. And so I just took what they had asked me to do and started writing some of the things that had happened. And I found that it was really working for me to kind of process some things. And so I went and just started writing it like a book, and it was very raw for the first, it's probably like a year I worked on it. And it was a very raw book. And, I wouldn't even call it a book at that point. It was just a memoir, like a true journal. So that's kind of how it started. I started doing more refining of it as it went on. And around 2011 or so, I had a copy that I thought was like, hey, this is a book, right? And so I submitted it to a couple agents and publishers. After meeting another Vietnam vet that had written a book that did pretty well, and I was like, hey, how do I do this, if I want to get my story out there? He read it, and he was like, this is very raw, so submit it to some of these people and see how it goes. And some of the feedback I got from that initial version was like, you can't publish this.
Really?
This is too real. People don't want to read about it. And so that left me feeling like, okay, well, now I'm just like, it's not good. It's not something I should put out there. And I had another friend read it back in like 2015, and some of the feedback it's in there. One of the things he said is, this isn't your story to tell.
I have that highlighted. I remember that was one of the first things. Yeah. Tell me about that. Like that kind of stung to me a little bit, like depending on, obviously you were there, he said it to you, like talk me through that.
Yeah. So, what I had gathered when he said that was some of the stuff I had talked about, some of the stuff I addressed was with a different platoon. And so I went into detail from what I had heard at that point. I wasn't there to experience the explosion that took their lives. And so I talked about like things that people had told me when we were there, like that morning. Mm-hmm. And I reflected on it after he said that, because after he said, this isn't your story to tell, I just said, well, like, I don't want to publish this. This isn't having the feedback from some of those agents and publishers at first, and then having that feedback from someone I had been there with. I was like, I shouldn't publish this. It's not my story to tell. How selfish of me. And so I just let it sit there. I didn't do anything else with it. But then I thought about it, and I looked at what I had written and what I suspected he might have been feeling upset about. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't my story to tell. It was a secondhand. I heard it from someone that was there but it still affected me because there were people I knew. And so I revised it and took out some of the things that other people had said and just had my own view on it and what I witnessed, and that is my story to tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I read that, and having been in similar situations, right, it's like two things can be true at the same time, right? Like, that stung a little bit when I read that, like, ouch, like, hold on a minute, you know what I mean? Like, what do you, first of all, I'll tell whatever story I want to tell, it's my story, right? But I can also see where kind of he was coming from. I thought you handled it very, very well in the book. The book is fantastic, all right? I really, really enjoyed the book.
Thank you.
Because you're welcome. I can relate to, so much of it that's written here, unfortunately, right? Well, let's rewind back to the beginning, because you have some very, very interesting, like, when I read that you dropped out of BRC.
Yeah, I was wondering what your thoughts were going to be on that.
Holy shit, dude. So yeah, basic reconnaissance course, right? For those, for the audience is, that is the school that you put in. It's very unpleasant and long to become a reconnaissance Marine, 0321 MOS, or military occupational specialty. And it is 3 months of not good times, right? Hard to get into and very, very hard to pass. High attrition rate, all the same old stuff. And how old were you when you made that decision?
I was 18.
I mean, so... And just because, for the people who haven't read the book, because it's not released yet, right? It's coming out. It
got delayed, unfortunately, not by anyone's. It was a shipment issue, so of course it's like the biggest thing for my life,
right?
In my story, I feel, for me personally, and I'm like so excited. There's a weight on me to just get it out there, and then they tell me it's delayed, and I'm like,
of course, yeah. Of course. So I had to read that twice. I had to read it twice. And I want to hear it from you, because either that was absolutely unprecedented beyond your age, like genius, being able to kind of see, you thought you were going to miss the war. Is that correct?
That's exactly why I chose to leave. I was tired of being treated like a boot, Yeah. And I just fresh out of boot camp. I made it in the pipeline in SOI, did the indoc and got accepted. And there's Gunny that we probably both know that was pretty well known, in that time frame, that had brought us all in there. And he's the one that's mentoring us. Mm-hmm. He's the one that said, he's like, you guys, you realize that you're here for 2 years before you do anything. And he's like, this is 2004. And he's like, the war's going to be over.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's not why I joined to be a Marine.
Yeah.
Because I'm a foolish 18-year-old, a naive 18-year-old that wanted to go to war.
Yeah, dude. And so what made you want to sign up to begin with? Go all the way back. Yeah. What made you want to pick the Marine Corps to begin with?
So my dad is a Marine. He did just under 4 years, whatever it was back then. He was in between Vietnam and, end of Vietnam, basically. So he never went to Vietnam. He'd taken part in this mission that had to do with something called the Maya Gez. It was a ship. It's a Maya Gez incident.
Okay.
It's a very interesting story.
I'm not familiar, but I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, look it up. But so a little bit of that in there. But my grandpa was a soldier in the Army, World War II. And then my great-grandpa was in World War I, sorry. And so it's just been in the family. On both sides of the family has Marines in them. And so I just knew I wanted to do it. And, I talked about it since I was in high school. And a lot of the people that knew me were like, yeah, he's going to be a Marine. My dad said, I will support you doing anything. Both my parents said, I'll support you doing anything. We'll go to college. We'll figure that out. But I was hell-bent on being a Marine. So I actually graduated high school early in, January of 2004 to go to boot camp in February. So.
And what was that like, knowing that, or having a better than average chance of going into active combat, like signing up knowing that there's a war going on?
Yeah, I mean, the war was already on now at that point, and I wanted to do my part. I wanted to earn my right to call myself an American. I guess not that you have to, just being here it's a wonderful country, but I just felt it in my blood. Like I need to do this.
So. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, and I think we, to a certain extent, I think most of, especially the Marine Corps, I had a lot of family influence on my side, and there was no question. It was all I ever wanted to do up until it wasn't, and right. And so I always ask, the veterans that come on, what was that initial like impetus? Like, what was it? A family member? Was it too many movies? Was it, did you just, I want to check that box, and that box, I think for a lot of, red-blooded young male Americans is, you just have this uncanny urge to go prove your mettle. And you want the chance, to go, and then a lot of time, then we get it, we get it, and it might be a little bit more than what we asked for, right? Which we'll get to later on. But so you go through the School of Infantry, and you take the recon selection, and you're in BRC, and you just like, at what point in BRC, like
I was in pre-BRC. I never went.
You were in pre-BRC, right? Yep. Okay, so maybe I misread that.
No, that's fine.
I got the impression that it was like mid-pool week or something, and it was like, you know what, I'm going to miss the war. I better go to the infantry.
I was on hold because I was in between classes, and we were just doing working parties nonstop. Which for anyone that hasn't served in the military, it's not a party.
At all. Yeah, it's not fun.
It's like the worst thing you do, like picking up cigarette butts and sweeping sand.
Yeah, in no particular direction. Yeah. Just sweep it to sweep it.
Yeah, just sweep the sand. But that's what it was like for me. I was just, I'm not, it's like one of my strengths and also weaknesses is I'm not a very patient person. And so I was like, the war, this guy, this old salt gunny is telling me the war's going to be done. He probably knows. He's been around the block.
Fair.
And, everyone else that's coming back, I'd been there for a guy that got a Bronze Star at the Recon Battalion for doing some pretty awesome stuff. And I was like, God, this guy's fucking awesome, But I was like, he's saying the war's done. Like these guys are like, all the getting was done. So why would, or it's going to be done. And I'm going to have to sit in this recon working party school and like, wait. I was like, nah, that's not what I'm going to do.
It's amazing, dude. That had to be a tough decision. Like they had to try to talk you out of it. Did they try and talk you out of it?
I don't remember, honestly. I feel like they were probably like, this is, you can't come back kind of thing. You can't, this is your chance,
100%.
And I probably could have come back,
Sure.
Command rotates, I didn't know at 18 though.
You don't. Yeah, you have no idea.
But at the end of the day, I was just like, yeah, that's fine. You're saying that I'm going to go, with these units, because they came back and he said, well, if you quit, you're going to this unit, 1-5. 1-5 or 2-5 will pick you up. And they're both going to the Triangle of Death. And I'm like, well, that sounds like that's where I should be.
Yeah. Sign me up.
Fallujah and whatever it was, that area. And I ended up going to 1-5. But yeah, that's what I remember of it, And
well, you landed in a good spot. Being a veteran of 1-5 myself, fantastic play. We had the stars aligned for us for the invasion.
Yeah.
We had a stellar, the world according to me. Right, it's my show, so I get to say what I want. We had a stellar officer corps. We had very good staff NCOs. The battalion commander was awesome. And that's not always the case, right? And so we had a very, very good crew. Always, shout out to 1-5, all past and future members. That's a good place to be if you find yourself there. But it's like DORing or dropping on request or quitting. That's very, very common in the basic reconnaissance course, right? Because the training is so arduous. But you didn't quit. You made a conscious decision to seek the first deployable unit. And at 18, especially 18-year-old, young Marine, where you there's not a lot of free and independent thought.
Yeah.
That's huge, dude. Kudos to you.
Well, I don't know what I mean? That was a good decision because I wanted to go for war, which knowing what war is now, it's like that.
Right, yeah.
Maybe it was, at the end of the day, it was a decision.
Sure.
Was it good? I don't know. That's what my life would have looked like had I not done it,
Yeah, without a doubt.
Some of the guys I was in my pre-BRC with, got killed or really messed up. And, I'm 6'7", so I've had lots of bullets that get close. Would that have changed given the circumstances somewhere else?
You're a big target, dude.
Yeah, so.
You're a big target. Yeah, you're a big target. So what was it like leaving and checking into 1-5? Like, how long was it after you left BRC and checking into 1-5, which is right down the street, and getting, it was Alpha Company, correct?
Yep.
You went to Alpha Company right off the bat. How long before your boots on the ground after checking into Alpha Company.
Or after leaving pre-BRC?
Correct.
Yeah, it wasn't long at all. I think it was maybe a month or so.
Really?
A month or two. Because 1-5 was starting their work up. They had just gotten back from Fallujah, the main Fallujah push, right? And as you said, they were there. Were you on the invasion? Or
Yes.
You were. Which company were you? Were you?
I was in the sniper platoon.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
1-5 snipers.
So, you had the initial push. 1-5 was on the initial invasion. Their first casualty was Lieutenant Childers.
I remember.
Yep. He's with Alpha Company, so everyone has that there with them. And then they go to do the Fallujah push. And so that's the same guys. And now I'm going to get picked up by 2-time combat veterans of some of the hardest fighting that we had seen in years, And so that's what I walked into from pre-BRC was that. And I remember standing, like there was 5 of us or like a handful of us that were in that drop that went to 1-5. And I don't remember who it was that was choosing where we were going, but it was like we were all in line at the in the command office. Alpha Company, are you a good swimmer? Yeah. Then Bravo, Charlie, and there you go. You're gonna do helicopters, you can do boats.
Yeah.
And so that's what it was. That's how I ended up there.
It's awesome, dude. It's funny how similar our stories are, just on different timelines. I had wanted to go to BRC initially, like when I first got it. The sniper path just kind of had its own trajectory, if you will. And when we got done with the invasion, I can remember sitting, waiting to go home.
Yeah.
And just like that Gunny had told you, like, hey, this is going to be quick. It's going to be over with. While you're at pre-BRC, I'm sitting in country basically throwing a fit that we're leaving. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to cross that because I wanted to stay. Sure. And my, for whatever ridiculous reason at the time, that's what I wanted, and it's not, I don't know. I just felt like no one has a crystal ball. I obviously didn't know the future. I wasn't, reading the tea leaves, but I wanted to stay, and I was trying to figure out how to cross deck over to 2-5 that was coming on, that was going to relieve us. And there was some talks about going to Syria and all this other kind of shit, right? I was a sergeant at the time, and my platoon sergeant sits me down and he says, I've done the Gulf War. I did Somalia. He's like, it's going to be short. Like, you're not missing anything, and I was like, same as you. I'm like, well, you've done it, I said, I don't agree with you. I think there's still a lot of work to be done here. And it just turns out I was correct. But that's why I went to sniper school. I had orders to sniper school to teach there at Quantico. And that was a big decision. I was like, man, I don't want to miss that opportunity. I really want to go teach there. They asked me to come teach, got selected out of the advanced course or what have you. And they ended up going back to Fallujah. And so my old team members who are now team leaders and running their own sniper teams are calling me, in their hide sites or what have you, and kind of giving me shit, like, you should be here, like, why did you go to school? Why did you go teach? And, but you, like you said, it was a decision that I made, and I made the best decision with the information I had, and it is what it is, right?
Yep.
No regrets, it just is what it is. 'Cause you never know. I could have gone to Fallujah, like you said, and not come back, and luckily all of our guys, for the most part did. But yeah, that's crazy. That was the real hook of the book right there. I was like, holy shit, he fucking said, I'm out of here. I want to go to the infantry. That's amazing. That's amazing, dude. And we'll circle back to it because obviously you ended up with you ended up doing a little MARSOC trip.
Yeah,
there
that was a cool way to close out the trip.
Yeah.
Close out my time.
Yeah, there was like a happy ending to the book. I was like, good for him, man. That's awesome. Well, one of the first things that caught my eye, and I've got a lot of highlighted pages here in notes, is there's a passage in there where you wrote that the war, it changed my soul. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I think war changes anyone's in a sense, depending on the decisions that are made. And so I made some, as you read in there, some decisions that I probably wouldn't have in different circumstances. It was a weird, confusing place. And so those decisions, they sit with you, and they don't go away. And I think, that's probably why I called it Counting on Death is, when you're there, when you're in combat, and the only way to get through it is to just at some point when you're young in it, I'd say, because when you're older, you understand it a little better. But the young end of it is, well, I'm not going to make it home, so I'm going to do anything to survive. And that means making decisions that maybe you wouldn't have made as an older salt or with different circumstances. And so making those decisions at a young age changed my soul in a sense that you bear the weight, I think, of some of those people that necessarily aren't cut and dry combatants, but it's the confusing gray area. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you when you first got on boots on the ground? How long did it, in having, there's like a lot of questions, like 3 questions in one here. Having the guys that had already had a couple trips, it had to be immensely comforting, someone to, to look to, as far as what's right, what's wrong, how do we operate, what are the do's and don'ts, having those guys there. How long after what was the process like from boots on the ground, geared up, first patrol, and you realize that it's for realsies? Do you remember?
I want to say, like, I kind of knew it was for reals when the guys that were giving me shit as a junior Marine at 1.5, when they were all like hard charging, hard ass people. When we got on the trucks and we loaded on the 7 tons, and their faces told the story of what we were getting into before we were leaving Camp Ramadi, and it was like, okay, like they're not comfortable. And so I'm not comfortable.
Right. Yeah. It's like when I don't get excited on an aircraft unless the crew chief gets excited, if the old timers, if the old salty guys are getting stoic, we must be getting ready to get it on.
When all the hard ass fucking jokes stop happening, mm-hmm. Everyone's quiet. That's when.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I got chills just thinking about it.
I bet.
But
that's
when it's like when nothing's funny anymore.
It is a surreal moment. Yeah. It is a surreal moment. I can relate, obviously driving across the line of departure there for the invasion. It almost didn't seem real.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all the adrenaline, the chemical cocktail, everything, is going on. And like even now, I know I was there. I know I did it. It seems surreal. It just was for me. And then I felt quickly, I don't know if you can relate or not, like, it's like once that initial kind of eye of the gerbil, kind of that eyes wide open, like, oh shit, now it's time for real. You just kind of get into the zone and you're kind of on autopilot, right?
That's 100%. Like you're reverting to your training, right? Mm-hmm. I remember the saying, I can't remember where I heard it first, but talking about MacGyver, right? You're never going to MacGyver your way out of something. You're going to revert to what you know and what you've been shown. And MacGyver must have watched a lot of stuff about chewing gum and fucking mirrors and, everything else because, he's not going to just pull that for the most part out of his ass when he's in such a heightened time of stress. And so that I talk about this in the book too, but I think that was some of the failure in some of our training leading up to that specific deployment because we were trained to kill. And then we go to get dropped in there and they're like, well, now you're going to do like some patrolling for winning hearts and minds. Mm-hmm. Like, what the fuck's that? That's not what we talked about,
Yeah, because that was gonna be my next question. If you felt adequately, did you feel prepared? Like, I know the Marine Corps does a phenomenal job of instilling confidence, right? Yeah. We don't lack confidence at all.
No.
But did you feel like the training you had done, because SOI is SOI, right? The School of Infantry, and then all of a sudden it's boots on the ground with not like, I felt adequately prepared because I had been in for 4+ years at the time. It was, first time Fifth Marines was my second unit, first combat deployment. But I felt very confident, right? That doesn't mean that it wasn't surreal and I wasn't, taken back like everybody else for the first time. But did you feel adequately prepared?
I was adequately prepared for combat.
Not for coin or...
Not for figuring out all the other stuff that was supposed to go along with it. And I think everyone was trying to figure that out. And that was a really shitty spot to be in for everyone, from like the higher ups down. Like realizing that as a, almost 40-year-old man now, it's like, okay, these guys, a lot of people were put in very impossible positions from what I think politicians wanted to see happening for a timeline versus what the reality was. And so like my first combat, like I think I talked about it in there when myself and Marty shot that one dude on the roof, and it was like that. He was a bad dude. That doesn't keep me up at night. Killing bad dudes is fine. Like they're trying to kill me, I'm going to kill them. I joined the Marine Corps to do that. It's all the other gray area stuff and all the confusion of anything else that wears on war on me, at least. The combat end of it, the Marine Corps did a very good job of preparing me for, and I think we need to continue that and not get soft, as a Marine organization, right? And that has been my fear for the last however many years because of the climate in the U.S. But at the end of the day, that Marines do their job very well, almost too well if you're trying to change their job. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
So we do something else with them, but not what we did for Ramadi. I guess that's like the culmination. Like that's like the synopsis of the book, I think. And I don't know if that is a takeaway that maybe from it.
Very much so. Okay. Yeah, very much so. The best, my opinion, the best thing about this book is it's not no shit. There I was knee deep in hand grenade pins. Check out how kick ass I am.
It's not what I wanted.
Well, you nailed it, because it's not. It's here are the mistakes. Here are the things that we did in the situations that we were put in, and like again, although Ramadi was different than the invasion in certain aspects, there's a lot of things that you guys had to deal with that we didn't. Mainly like the IEDs and things of that nature. And the invasion was bizarre in comparison to some of the other things, right? You almost could do no wrong in the invasion, if that makes sense, totally. Right?
That's what we had for, people that were in the invasion were now our senior platoon leaders in a sense, the strategic lance corporals, even some of them. That's war. And that's I hope this comes across too. If there's one politician that watches this or reads the book and says, we shouldn't maybe send people to war unless this is the final option, because war isn't something that you can direct in the sense of, from my opinion, from my experience, at the very ground level, where it does start affecting like the outcome of whatever whatever political thing they're trying to push. War is the last ditch effort, which means it's no holds barred, anything goes. But the way I was feeling with a lot of it, later when we were coming back and things were happening, it's like, well, we can't be doing this because X, Y, Z. And, it's like, we're Marines. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what they all showed on the recruitment videos. We're not fighting a dragon. But,
which would be cool.
Yeah, it would be cool. All of us would do it. Doesn't matter if we're watching our brothers get destroyed. We're still going to go fight it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we need to be careful, I think, as a country to say either not be too weak, or not put ourselves in a spot where you're expecting a certain outcome with circumstances attached to it, And I think that's where Ramadi was very confusing, was they wanted us to do war. We had to fight an insurgency while shaking hands, handing out candy, getting blown up, watching our friends die, and then have, people that live in the city say there's no bad guys in Ramadi. So
yeah, I know that. And no Alibaba. Yeah. I read that. That kind of stuff stings, and I want to drill down on some of the, those civilian interactions, because it is very interesting. And, not to sound cliche, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Like, the invasion for me was almost the opposite. I mean, the reason why this book is so interesting is, one, it's so raw and so personal, and so there's a lot of vulnerability there, right? Because being in those combat environments, you're extremely vulnerable at all times, right? And susceptible to, decisions and feelings and things that you've never experienced before, right? And then, like you allude to in the book, you got the rest of your life to kind of reflect on it, right? And it never goes away. Like, did I make the right decisions? Was that a mistake? Things that you regret, and so on and so forth. And I can remember in the invasion, it was such scorched earth, that I was of like the coin mindset, like I was like, we should be operating, and I'm not saying I was right. I'm just saying how I felt at the time. I got so disgusted with what some of the, unadulterated barbarism, that I covered up my Marine Corps tattoos when I got back. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, I almost, it's like, I got so frustrated with, just the hammer. I almost went kind of full circle, like, not to use a movie and sound cliche, but like I started off as Elias and I came home as Barnes. Yeah. Like you sure. Right? Can 100%. You relate to that? Yes. Yep. I was a true believer, and we're here doing the right thing. And, and I still believe that. Like, I always tell people, I'm proud that I went. I'm ashamed that we were even there in the first place. Yeah. Does that
totally? And it's funny because I just saw there's this reel on Instagram that showed a Taliban soldier currently being interviewed about America's role in Afghanistan and like what he thinks of us, the soldiers, they say, but Marines, anyone that was there fighting, what he thinks of them. And it was a very humbling thing to hear him say, but he's like, they were just doing what they thought was right.
I've seen it. Yeah. Now, I saw it.
It gives me the chills because it's like, you know what? We're all humans. They're doing them. Why do we need to interfere? Mm-hmm. Like, we do us. That's fine. They're going to do a better job of war because they have the right mentality to do war, which is there's no rules, and there aren't. And like, I don't care who you are. You're going to tell me that you're sending people to go kill other people. If it's at that level of a dire need for to gain whatever political, objective you need, then there are no rules.
Correct.
You're a fool to think otherwise, and you're only setting up our boys, or anyone, any service member, you're setting them up to have a life of questioning existence. Mm-hmm. So, and same thing. You said you covered up your tattoos. For a period of my life after getting out, I was just like, I felt so many different feelings that I was like, I don't even I want to be known as something other than just having been in the Marine Corps, and trying to like get to that's somewhere else or whatever that was, while always having the other shit on your back pounding away at you. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it was such an emotional experience in every way, shape, or form, good, bad. Yeah. I think once again, like I was just I didn't agree with how we were going about things. And what the fuck do I know as a 23-year-old sergeant, you know what I mean? But you think you do at the time. And you talk about that in the book as well. I'm kind of skipping towards the end, but like, the interactions between an average, civilian 18, 19-year-old, and then you talk to, there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences between a 19-year-old, Marine and a 19-year-old civilian, right? Yeah. And the responsibilities, the things they have to shoulder, the situations that they're put in, right? So you do have to give that individual a little bit of credit, right? And there's a distinct difference between the two. We can pick each other out, right? No matter what age we are, we can pick each other out. But it's a lot of the things that I read in the book and could relate to. It was almost the reverse in the invasion, right?
It's interesting too, though, because I had almost, and you know that from the book, almost the opposite. We had opposite experiences that had a full circle, where Ramadi was that confusing time for me, and the MARSOC deployment to Afghanistan was like, I am in a position to be in charge with some of these guys here, and it was an invasion style, or it was a true combat thing. We drove around till we got in contact.
Yes, and then moving to contact.
We killed them, and it felt good. And like, we had trained our guys from my bad experiences in Ramadi. We prepped them, I think, for, like, my goal was to go there and not have them carry a weight back home. And you can't guarantee that from anyone, but we were very fortunate that we had that. At least in my opinion, a lot of that. was the way it was coming back. So, and so that was a good way to close out because of, that experience, having it be a lot cleaner of a war, I guess. The enemy wasn't as cowardly. The Taliban were great fighters.
They are.
They're very good fighters. I respect them because I got bracketed and we were on top of a hill and they bracketed us with mortars. It's like, we're getting bracketed right now, guys, and then we found out we're on a minefield. So we had to navigate that.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up. And I was going to ask too, there is such a distinct difference. And at the same time, other than saying, between the fighting in Iraq and the fighting in Afghanistan, and I didn't do any deployments to Afghanistan as a Marine. It was all with the intelligence community, but we were co-located with, MIL a lot of the times. And it almost instantaneous. I was like, oh, these guys will fight you.
Yep.
The Iraqis, the Iraqi, straight leg Iraqi soldier wasn't really into it. No. It was all the foreigners. And even in the invasion, we had, it was kind of like the dinner bell. Even in the invasion, we had quite a few people coming from, north, south, east, and west trying to get, Christmas come early or Ramadan come early, right? Yep. Come fight the Americans. I had my brother on the show just the other day, and we were talking about his deployments to the Triangle of Death. And I said, how many times did you ever see anybody in uniform? And he was like, never, and I can think of 2 occasions, and it was only because I had the advantage of a sniper rifle where I could kind of, bird's eye view it, so to speak. And I was like, holy shit, I on 2 different occasions, I saw guys head to toe, black beret, all of it. Yeah. And it was not a common sight, in those early days, right? Everybody was in civilian clothes very, very soon. Yeah. So a lot of the uniforms you just saw lying on the ground, or if they were still in them, they were dead, because we came up on them so fast or what have you. But yeah, big differences. And I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, Afghanistan was a very different type of warfare. Yeah.
And I think people have asked did you talk about our deployment? You guys I started with at MARSOC, and it was not really. I think there's a paragraph or a couple pages of it. I talk about the work up there. Mm-hmm. But if I had put that in this book, it would be a war story, because that's what it is. Everything went very well. Yeah, there's always things that could go better, but it would, I think, take away from what this book was. And I had contemplated writing about it in here. It would be its own book, and it would just be a war story about that.
Do you have any interest in doing that? Now that you have this,
my publisher asked it. Why don't you talk more about Afghanistan there? And that's exactly. I think I wrote about it in there in that same way. Maybe I'll write a book about it. I don't know. I think it's cool because we were the first MARSOC Bravo ever, and there were an amazing amount of good dudes from everywhere. And there is an awesome story to tell there of a lot of good things that were done. So I think that there would be. There is a book there, of course, but for me, this was I had to get this out. After I decided to publish it, it was it's almost like that itch that just has to get scratched, and I have to get that out,
Yeah, talk to me about if you don't mind. Talk to me about the process. Talk to me through that first time sitting down in front of the computer and starting to type. What were the days, months, weeks leading up to it? Do you remember the first time you said, I'm gonna, was that the reason why you kept the journal while on your deployments? What was the impetus to?
So yeah, the journal, I have I should have brought it. It's just leather-bound journal my sister gave me before I left. And so she put all these family pictures in it up front, some motivational quotes that she had glued in there. It was a really nice thing to get.
Super cool. Yeah.
It was leather bound and it had this strap on it. So I just kept it in my pocket, fit right in my cargo pocket. And I figured with all the boredom of, travel, everything else, I just started writing in it as a journal. And it's very interesting because I went back and you go back and look at it now, and the writing in the beginning of it is very tight and clean.
Yep.
And as you get down towards the end of the deployment, it's messy. It's big. It's just sloppy. It's sweat. You can see there's sweat drips. Yeah. It's I'm on post, which I shouldn't have. I was a shitbag. Shouldn't have been.
That was a good part of the book. Yeah.
I shouldn't have been fucking writing in it on post, but you can only masturbate so many times.
You're right. Yeah. You get bored up there. You get bored up there.
So I just started writing in there, and then I think it was July 17th or at some point in July, I thought I was going to die, I was like, this fucking place sucks. So I'm not even going to take, and nothing at that point in it was like anything I wanted to remember. So I'm like, I'll just stop writing about it and then it'll go away. Yeah, that happens, right?
So what was it like? I kept one as well, and I've never opened it.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just like, I'll look at it, I'll think I should open that. And then I just don't. I can't even explain
it's almost
why.
like that, whatever that film Pull is, where it like zooms in and out at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to touch that thing.
Yeah. It's like my hand goes out, and then I'm like, maybe tomorrow.
So what happened with that actually? That was like I had already started writing this story out at that time, and I just did, like I said, from therapy for the VA had recommended it because I was ready to kill myself, and they're like, well, you should try some of these things, and so I was like, I'll try it, I sought them out for help. So like, let's not back out. And so I started doing that, and it did, start kind of helping to piece events and things together. And then I went back and read the journal after I had kind of jotted things down. And it was wild what I could remember. And having it, like the things that were written about in the journal, some of those things were like the next day or the day of events happening, and it was so burned into my memory that it was lining up with this journal I had done a couple, 4 or 5 years later. This memoir, that had started. But what I did is I took that journal, and my brother-in-law helped me out. He sat there, and we were in my basement, and he would just like turn the page and hold it, and I would just type it out. I typed it out, so I had every page I have written out and typed out. And I thought that'd be a cool thing to put out at some point.
That is cool, yeah.
Because you can see my handwriting change, and then you can see how my writing, that you can read it easily. The reader can see it easily. But I just wanted to get it out there. And doing that really helped me to, I don't know, just like put things out there into reality. Like this did happen. Like you said, like some of the stuff that you do or some things that happen are so wild that it's like, there's no way. Like, am I misremembering this? Am I doing something?
Oh, for sure.
And then you go back and you see that, and it's like, no, that was that wild. That was that crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a funny thing too. Like you have these, at least I have these well, you do too. You just said it, like these internal, I'm not making this up in my own head, am I? Like that did happen. Because the human memory is so, especially in those, high stress environments, like, everybody's watching the same movie, but kind of different versions, if that makes sense, right? Did you find the process, how was the process of writing it? Did you find it difficult? Was it cathartic? Was it all of the above? Was there ever a time that you wanted to quit or you got discouraged?
I mean, there's times where I was writing it and I was like, I couldn't even see. It was like your windshield wipers are on full, and you can't see. I'm just trying to type, trying to breathe, and just to get out what I needed to. And they say, with cognitive therapy or whatever, like, oh, you should write it with your hand, write it by hand because it helps retain it. It's like, I fucking will not, why do I need to retain this shit? And,
it's retained.
Like, it's retained. Like, I just need to get it out of my head in a way that I will be able to come back and fucking read.
Right.
Because I know if it were like me writing it, it would just be script. It would be some combination of like regular print and cursive with like, tears on the pages. But it felt good. It was really a good process. And I challenge anyone that's like struggling. I mean, it sounds like cliche, but like, if you're struggling, to try writing it out, because it does help. It doesn't go away. It's like it doesn't make it all go away, but it makes it logical. Like this exists in my life and someone else's. So
lots of guys, and I'm sure it was very emotional writing it. I texted you, I don't think I got through the first 4 or 5 pages and I was already cracked like an egg. I said, holy shit, man, this is going to be a tough read, and not a tough read in the sense, like it was because I had experienced so many similar things, the old, it took me back, like it brought me back, right away, which is, if you're trying to elicit an emotional response, once again, you hit the 10 ring, like it's, I shudder to think that anyone that reads this that's been through it that can't relate to every aspect of this, right? Every aspect of this book. you know, and I never, you know, we drove past Ramadi. Like even in my time frame, you know, there was kind of back and forth, you know, which was worse, you know, Baghdad or Ramadi, or this is what was going on in Ramadi or Fallujah, this and that. And, you know, but I felt like I was there. I was like, yeah. I said, I know what he's talking about. You know, I feel that. I remember that, you know. Yeah, it was an emotional read. I have another note on here. Like I said, I could have had 10 pages, you know what I mean? Like if we had 9 hours, you know. It said you said we turned into monsters. We became terrorists in their country.
Yeah. I mean,
do you want to drill down on that? Because
it's in there, you know, let's talk about it.
No truer words have ever been spoken, if you ask me. I 100%.
You can't ask people to kill other people and not be a monster, in a sense. Like, you have to go to that place. Mm-hmm. Especially when you watch your friends die. And you don't get to say bye. Mm-hmm. You know, they're all laughing 1 second, and the next they're dead, you know, and yeah, it was a wild time. You know, we were there, and then at that point in time, I wasn't 100% sure why we were there. Like, what the fuck was the mission there? You know?
Did you care? You know what I mean by that? I mean, did you? I can distinctly remember, and I'm not saying this is right. I can distinctly remember the why didn't matter to me.
Yeah, I mean, I was there because I felt like I was doing that was because I wanted to serve my country, number one, and my country had people there. And religiously at the time I was a Christian. I believe in a God now, but I don't believe in religion. Because I watched what I was willing to do for mine with no questions asked. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, I was there for my country, I was there for my religion, and they were the enemy. So it didn't matter. Right. And, you know, is it shitty to say that? Yeah. But is it the truth? Yeah. It's 100% truth. I think that if we talk more about that stuff as a society and like what we're really asking young men and women to do, like, that's it, you know, that's what you get. Yep. Yes. I you know, once again, these passages that I highlighted and that I took notes were the ones that, you know, just hit me in the temple, you know, right square between the eyes. Like, I can distinctly remember, I don't want to say, you know, if it's going over almost like the switch, you know, like I said, from kind of Elias to Barnes, right? Yeah. You know, I can remember the switch where I'll take care of this entire place with, you know, not trying to be like the unadulterated rage, murderous bloodlust, right? And how quickly you get there. Yeah. How you know what I mean? I mean, can you? Yeah. Again, like, I think that's part of the reason why I call the book Counting on Death. When you're like, fuck it, I'm going to die here, nothing matters. Right. And just to clarify with the Elias to Barnes analogy, that's Platoon, the movie Platoon. Yeah, the movie Platoon, yeah. We're dating ourselves? Yeah. I hope we're not, Jason. I grew up on that movie and, I mean, loved it, you know? Yeah, right. But yeah, but there is definitely a time when you, like, change. And I don't remember if I have a chapter on, like, I don't know if I have it in there. But I allude to the monsters thing, and I think that's kind of where the transition is happening. You do, yes. Yes. And it is. It's just like this numbness. It's like the worst case of the fuck-its you could ever have. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. It's such a hollow place to be. Yeah. I actually so I can kind of know when that was. Is around that time I called my fiance at the time and said we're not getting married. Yeah. Yep, that's about that time. It was like June after the second platoon guys all died, like somewhere in there. And you know, and I was holding on. I was holding on at that point. You know, like, there's got to make some sense here. We got to be finding something out. There's nothing. I felt it in my gut, dude. I made an out loud noise when I read it. I was like, oh no, because I hope he fixes that. And of course you did. Yeah. You know, like I you know, my wife's sitting, you know, I'm sitting in my chair and my wife's like, what's going on? I'm like, it's a good book. You know, like, because I can remember I didn't write
any letters. I didn't make any calls. I think any is a strong word. Like towards the end when we were kind of waiting to go home, I wrote some letters. My poor wife,
were you married at the time?
100%.
Yeah, you were.
And she was at command there at the MEF, the Marine Expeditionary Force, doing none other than casualty watch. So she's watching, they're running 24/7 ops, so she's watching, the little diamonds, the Blue Force tracker stuff,
Yep.
and who's getting hit, just waiting for my name to come up. Like when she saw some of the casualties that we had in the sniper platoon, she's like, "Fuck, here we go," So and then on top of it, me being nuclear or weapons grade asshole, I'm not writing, I'm not calling, like I don't have time for that shit. You know what I mean? Like I thought that was the right answer at the time. It's so singularly focused on what we were there to do, right? I don't think I ever got to the spot where I didn't think I was going to come home. I kind of had it in my mind, like I didn't have control over anything. I was as trained and as prepared as I was going to be. My team had been together for a long time, and all of the guys were phenomenal. I just was of the mindset, if I get hit, I get hit. If I get hit and it kills me, nothing I'm going to do, it's almost luck.
Yep.
It's almost luck, right? There is a ton of luck. And so it wasn't that I didn't think I was going to come home. I was very singularly focused and kind of in the zone the whole time. And I regret a lot of that. Like I could have called, I could have wrote some letters, I
think that's a good way to put it, because in the book I talk about having written, and in the back of my journal I started writing a letter home. Like if you're reading this, I'm not here.
Yeah.
Thing, right? And I crossed it out and put bad luck, wrote bad luck on it. Because I truly didn't feel like I wasn't going to come home. It was a weird place to be. Like it was, like I think you said, singular, thought process. That's probably the best way to say it. Like you just have to, it's like being a hunter-gatherer, right? Where's the food? Right.
That's all you,
Got my food. Now I need sleep.
Yep.
Wake up. Where's the food? You can't think about anything else. You just can't. You're in survival mode, and so to like have some of the guys I served with say, "Hey, I'm not going to make it home from this deployment," and then not make it home. It's like there's a feeling I think that's there, and I think if someone truly feels that way, and says it out loud, because y'all wonder it, but I think to state it made it real. It was a wild thing to have witnessed, but yeah, the singular thought I think is a good way to put it.
I think it's such a bizarre thing to say, but it's such a simplistic, if you really boil it down to black and white, like you said, like I need food, I need sleep, or in that case, like what is the objective?
Yep. What
are we to accomplish? I'm not worried about bills. I'm not worried about I know I'm going to get to eat at least once today, yep. Right? It's, am I safe? Are my teammates safe? And are the bad guys, are we killing the bad guys?
Yep.
The end. That's it.
Yep.
There's nothing else to think about, And
that's like just thinking about like some of the things that I see on social media and everything where people are talking about what you need to do to prep for it. You can't. Like you can't prep for that. And I think like we have it so good in this country that you have to seek that out.
Right. That's a good point.
We have it so good. You have to seek out a way to feel that primal feeling when you're in combat, and when you're dropped in there, you just go there, and there's no amount of training that like the training that you receive from the Marine Corps helps you to be more efficient in that mindset, but it doesn't get you there. There's no way to get someone there. You just have to be in life and death.
Yeah, for sure.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, you can watch every movie, read every book.
Yeah. I've seen Marines, you probably have too, like they freeze in that. When that first thing happens, like are they going and seeking cover, or are they frozen for a moment?
Yes.
And even with all the fucking training we have, they still have that. They still have that fight or flight response. So,
yep.
But yeah.
I'd like to drill down on that too. Do you have that just brought up an interesting memory? People's performance and kind of the inner team or inner platoon, squad, what have you, however you're organized. You kind of it's an emotional connection to those individuals, because you're going to have good and bad days in the worst environment imaginable possible, right? And not everyone's going to be on the same page. You know, the guy to the left of me is having a bad day. He's, you know, not thinking straight or making mistakes or what have you. You know, do I absolutely drill down on that dude and crush him, or is that going to make it worse? And you know, we hold each other to such a high standard, and especially, and I can tell you're one of them, you know, Marines are fanatical, and then there's fanatics within the Marine Corps, you know, that just take it, you know, to the nth. And I had a particular instance in one of our incidents, I'll just call it an incident, where a veteran, I believe, veteran of the Somalia, he had some broken time. I had hitched a ride with the CAT platoon, the combined arms team, you know, all the hardback Humvees and stuff. And I set up basically a sniper position, you know, in the turret with the Mark 19 gunner, you know, and finding out, you know, and I don't know him from a jar of Vicks. Like, I know the platoon sergeant because I'd been in 1-5 for, you know, 3.5 years at that point as the chief scout for the sniper platoon. So I kind of knew the head shed, right, of all, because I'd worked with all the companies and so on and so forth. Well, long story short, you know, we pulled up to the Sonam Canal. We had drove through on-call targets. You know, I can remember hearing the young Marines on the little ICOMs that we had, like, is that ours? And I'm like, no, it's theirs, you know? And anyways, we pulled up, and kind of as the dust settled, and that Mark 19, he never really gave me the time of day. One, I was a stranger. He didn't know me. And he kind of had a little air of, you know, kind of a shit done stink because he had Somali, and I don't blame him. You know, he was salty, right? And there was a target. There was a ZSU-23. Like, as the dust settled, you know, to kind of paint the picture, I'm looking over his shoulder, kind of what's going on, where are the bad guys? And I'm staring at 4 barrels lay level, you know, probably about 100 yards, 150 yards away from us. And I just remember I didn't slap him hard. I just grabbed him by the shoulder and I pointed. I said, hit that thing. I couldn't tell if it was manned or not. You couldn't, you know, I'm just looking at, right? Yeah. But I'm like, if they start shooting that thing, we are fucked. Yeah. And you have a Mark 19, so let's get those eggs in the air, right? The automatic grenade launcher. And he threw that first group of eggs and it was way high. And I was like, dude, you need to go lower. Like, in that tone, like being very conscious not to amp him up, right? Even though it was a very high, you know, or intense situation. 3 volleys, and he's working that T&E. He's trying to get it on target, and every time he misses it, he's unspooling even harder. And you know, it's kind of like, you know what's happening. Like, this guy is about to be combat ineffective because he can't get rounds on target, and if they're manned, we're about to be fucked. So I ended up shooting at it with my, you know, sniper rifle. I was like, if there is somebody, at least I'll keep their heads down, you know, and then a tank hit it, you know. But I didn't talk to that dude. I was so kind of disgusted with that dude's lack of bearing, you know, to the point to where the platoon sergeant, he pulled me aside and he's like, hey, if you don't talk to that guy, you're making him worse. Like, he made a mistake. Yeah.
He's obviously eating him up enough where he's talking to you about it.
Yeah. You know, and the platoon sergeant, he would always call me shitbag. He'd be like, hey, shitbag. And I'm like, you know, love the dude to death. Still, you know, great dude. He's like, and I was like, fuck that guy. You know what I mean? I was like, if that's how you're going to act when the shit hits the fan, yeah, I don't want to be, you know what I mean? And I kind of regret that. You know, I kind of regret that now. You know, I could have not done that. You know, I was just so angry at his inactions at the time. You know, did you have any experiences like that? You had to have, you know.
I mean, yeah, there was a couple times where, you know, we had guys, and a lot of it was in, because I was a young Marine in Ramadi, and then, so I didn't know, you know, really what to be doing. I'd be kind of looking at other people. I knew, but it was like, okay, you know, we're fighting now, obviously, so I never really watched anyone freeze like that. Apparently one of the guys in our platoon had an issue where he just like shut down for a second. They were like grabbing him back, but I wasn't on that patrol with him, so just hearing about it though was enough. And he was just kind of like, yeah, man, I don't know what the fuck happened. And, you know, and I felt bad for him. You know, no one was really, the thing was everyone was pretty like compassionate because he was a performer. And so it's just like, they're just kind of like, what the fuck happened, dude? Like, your brain just went down. You went to power down mode for a moment. And it was long enough.
You got the wheel in.
You know, but like there's some in Afghanistan, I watched a guy kind of opposite, but he was like really worked up. Like there's a guy in there with a gun, you know, like a dude in there with a pistol. And I'm like, let's go get him. You know, like, we need to go in. You know, so we like push past him to go in there and clear it out. And of course, you know, there was no dudes in there, no one to be found, right? Either squirted or he was losing his fucking mind.
Right.
But and you see that end too, where it's almost like things are just happening so fast that people can't process what to do next. And it's almost kind of personality based. I almost feel like
it is.
And unfortunately, I don't want to be like, I mean, but you can kind of tell when someone's going to be a little more worked up, you know, just based on libo experiences.
Sure.
Just like being with them on the daily, you know, do they get worked up because they don't have fucking peanut butter in their MRE, you know?
Yeah,
Is that the problem that they're worrying about right now? Like, okay, that might blow up to be something different later.
Yeah.
You know?
And then there's, tell me if you can relate to this, there's guys that, you know, especially in the invasion, because 99% of us, it was, you know, first time around. So everyone's like, is Tommy Tough Knuckles over there going to be the first one that folds, you know? Yeah. And then the real quiet one that is not, you know, super alpha or whatever ends up, you know, being a
top performer,
the plague, you know what I mean? Like doing shit that you're like, oh my God, hold on a minute, you know, like, you know, and then everything in between, right? You know, so it's such an experiment in, you know, psychology and humanity and how people handle things, you know, the goods, the bads, the everything. Like I've got notes in the margins here, like the comedy. Yeah. Just the unadulterated comedy, even when, like you said, there's nothing to be laughing about right here, but you find comedy. Like one of the things is, and I laughed till I about had tears, the Lieutenant's magazine coming out of it. Do you want to tell that story?
I mean, yeah, he's left-handed, and I didn't know my dad's left-handed growing up. We only shot you know, bolt action rifles growing up, really. And so my first experience with someone that's a left-handed shooter with an AR platform was my lieutenant. And the poor dude had like all our gear on and everything. And the way that the mag release sits on your chest when you have it on a sling, it's always hitting it. And so we'd be running through on a patrol, and you just hear the mag drop, and you know, and throughout the, you know, he never really cussed or did anything, you know, but like you hear like fuck, you know, or you'd watch the interpreter bend down and like pick it up for him. And like, here you go, sir. You know,
like I can't. Oh man,
and it's just like you know, it's like kind of like one of those things where you're like, love you, man. We don't talk about it much, you know, but like we all know. You know, we started counting it. We had like someone had tally.
I was like, of course they did. Of course they started counting it. Of course they did. And that poor lieutenant, because they're just getting fucking shit on left and right, you know. And I was reading that, and I'm like, I can't think of a worse thing to have happen all the time.
Yeah, it's like
it's horrible. It's,
you know, you wonder too. You know, it could get bumped and be in that weird position because of the weight and everything, where it's kind of caught in the mag well.
Yeah,
but it's not. You know, but it's like just hanging on by a thread.
Right.
So like if you were to go up on target or something, you get one round and then your mag's out, you know?
Oh my God. You get that, you know, if it were me, you get nauseous.
Oh yeah.
You know, if it was happening to me, so I have this feeling of nausea because everyone's had it happen to them at least once where they didn't seat the mag properly. And then at the same time, I could put myself in the rest of you guys' shoes, just absolutely having a heyday watching the sir, you know, drop his mag every other step, you know, like.
Well, it's bad too when, you know, the interpreters are laughing. You know?
Oh, it's right. Like,
you know, it happens enough that they know, you know? The comedy, the things that you find humor in the funny things that happen, it's, once again, it's almost like you had to be there. Yeah.
You know, that same platoon sergeant that kind of dressed me down over, you know, how I was treating the Somali veteran, was the same guy that in the middle of another tick, like he's giving directions, he's, you know, doing platoon sergeant things, you know, like telling the team leaders where to move the vehicles and cover fire down on this and blah, blah, blah. And I was in a good enough position to just kind of sit there and watch him, you know, and kind of listen to what he was doing. Because as a sniper in those, I was just kind of trying to always find a job. You know, how can I support? What can I do? Right. In the absence of active targets. Right. And in the middle of him giving, you know, sound tactical decision, he does this double take and he looks at the team leader And we've been there for months at this point, and started dressing him down about the fact that he hadn't shaved.
I mean, that's the Marine Corps.
Right?
Yeah.
And I started laughing. I mean, it's an active firefight. And I talked to him about it later on. I was like, that's pretty belt fed, dude, in the middle of a firefight. And he's like, I don't even know what you're talking. Like, he didn't even remember doing it. The Marine. Yeah. After you kill those bad guys, I want you to shave immediately. You know, like we can't let standards drop, you know. But what is some of the other things I have written down here? He hit on comedy. You wrote teenagers fighting a man's war. And then I have mistakes and childlike behavior.
Ooh, yeah. It goes back to just, I mean, and you said it earlier, you can look at a 19-year-old on the street and find one of us at 19 and pick us apart, right? But I think having some alcohol on board for two 19-year-olds, one's a Marine, one's not, you're going to get a similar outcome.
Sure.
Right? Fucking poor decisions. There's still, your prefrontal cortex isn't done developing until you're 24, 25 or something like that as a man. And so we are children, I think, just looking at scientifically, you're asking young men or old kids, put it in that term, right? To go fight a war. And you're not going to get the same results as you would with like having seen it from special operations side in Afghanistan, where we had the training. A lot of us were older.
Yep.
And you are truly like a professional in a sense of you can make better decisions. And if the government wants better outcomes of future wars, but they don't want Putin level pushes across lines, then every war should just be a special operation, special forces fought war, because that's the precision we need to be diplomatic about, a conflict. You can't have people who are not done developing as a human being making decisions to take other human beings' lives, and hold them to a standard that it's just not even truly possible to do. And so that's kind of where I was alluding with that, like, being maybe a bit dramatic with it, I guess, with calling them children. They're not, but.
Yeah, my words, right? Those are my notes.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't remember saying, but.
Yeah. Yours was teenagers fighting a man's war, and then like I said, I had some notes because I once again can relate some of the things, and it's I'd like you to drill down on any of them. You have several examples in here of things that you did that were maybe immediately regretful, or at least regretful afterwards. And I have tons of examples of my own.
I can think of maybe where that came from. Was it the sneaking up on people when they're sleeping and then scaring them while we're doing?
I did get a kick out of that. Yeah, that was like
it's like prime when Jackass the show was like going
right,
and so everyone's like, oh, this would be funny, We're all still kids. You're still you're still like youthful in your poor decision making.
Yeah. It's just I was like, of course I did when I read it. When I read like making a game out of it.
Yeah.
And when you sit back and think about it now, and you have, that's a major portion of the book. Like, why did we feel the need to play games in such a high stake environment? Like, here we are, foreign invaders. Right, wrong, or indifferent, because we could that's a whole episode in itself, right? Yeah. Why are we there? What are we doing? Some guys don't care. I was one of those. And then we find a way to almost make it entertaining, right? Yeah. The dehumanization and I think how quickly we get to that place, and you talk about it in the book, where they're not even people anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just not. They're a problem that needs to be dealt with, right? And I'm not saying that that's right. It's like put yourself in their shoes.
Yep.
What would you do, right, where you live, if all of a sudden, you know what I mean? 10 of you walked into the room in the middle of the night, and they're standing over your bed.
Yep.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And like at the time, you're just like, well, I'm here because we're on the right side of God.
Mm-hmm.
We're here for my country.
Do you still feel like that?
What's that?
Do you have, has your thoughts and opinions on that changed?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. that helped me, I think, be a better combatant even on my Afghanistan trip, is understanding, no one's truly better than anyone else. We are very fortunate in America to have the amenities that we have, to have the life that we live. Just because the people are wearing sandals and, shawls and other things and choose to wear a face covering doesn't make them a bad human being. And if we are such a great country with all the knowledge that we have, all these smart bombs, then why are we doing dumbass things? And I think that it comes back down to the core of humanity, So, I mean, and don't get me wrong, like, I am glad I killed the terrorists or the Taliban, the terrorists I did kill in Ramadi. Like, the circumstances were there. I made the decision. It happened, but we could do better in some of the circumstances. The Taliban, like, they were good fighters, and that was just a good a game in a sense. Like, that was, that was war. So I'm okay with that. But I think going back to, like, the core of prepping people to go, I don't know what it's like now. I'm assuming that there's been a lot of lessons learned from the military and the Marine Corps in general from our time in, that maybe that's getting addressed, but I would hope so,
I don't have any, I don't, the only distinct change, and I'm by no means one of those guys that kind of keeps his finger on the pulse at all, as far as the Marine Corps goes, like once I got out, other than, keeping in contact with guys that are in, right? And it's so, and I'm sure you can relate, it's so bizarre if you step away for a little bit and then I found myself kind of back, the first time you go back to Camp Pendleton or interact with the Marines, it's weird. Like, they until they figure out that you were there, they kind of treat you differently, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, hey man, I used to be one of you guys. Oh, okay. No, right. Yeah.
But you do feel like an outsider, even like going back to they have a memorial at Mateo, with like the names on it and everything. And I went and saw that in 2013 or 2012 or something like that. And super cool to be there, but it did feel like I shouldn't be here.
It's a weird feeling.
I'm not welcome. I'm not part of the crew anymore.
It's so strange, right? And then there's still this level. I have it. I don't know. You might disagree. Like, as soon as I step on base, for whatever the purpose is, I have this creeping level of anxiety. That you always had when you were kind of in garrison.
You're just seeing knife hands?
Yeah. I'm checking my gig line, like, wait a minute. Like, nobody's going to say shit to me anymore except, hey, good morning, sir.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm going to get yelled at again, it's you had several examples in the book of, what I would call, tomfoolery or shenanigans or, not a time appropriate behavior, and I think it does go back. It's a way, almost like a way of lashing out. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think you're trying to, I guess, like, reflecting on it, because I haven't really thought of it in that sense, but it's almost like you're keeping your, whatever exists of your own identity in some way. Like, this is what I used to do. This is what I used to laugh about. Now I'm just going to, like, compound it and make it even bigger, right? To show that I'm still I'm still me, even though you feel like you're not. Maybe that's where that stemmed from. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of examples, and I know I did shit that I wasn't, quote unquote, supposed to do, right? And not, I don't want to say wasn't supposed to do, but like, what's inappropriate in that scenario? I'm not sure.
Well, especially being like a Marine, right? As a Marine, like, I don't remember laughing very much in boot camp, right? You're not expected.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, like, you go back to, like, the core of what we are expected to be, and it's like you're doing things that would be, what do they say, unbecoming of a Marine?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, but we're also humans first.
Right. Like, and this is it's what we're talking about, but there's some comedy in it too. When we took over the palace there, the presidential palace. And I can't remember how long we'd been on the rooftop, like our position, but it didn't seem like very long, right? And it was just mass chaos. It was bananas, right? And somebody came over the battalion net I can't remember who it was, but it was like, attention on the net. Let's say we've been there for 45 minutes in an active gunfight. You know, it's crazy, right? And somebody at some point came over the radio and said, attention on the net, stop shitting. Like someone had shit on like Saddam's pillowcase or something. Like one Marine, you know, the first Marine in the door. At least that's the movie that immediately played in my head. I was like, what did they just say? Like, we've only been here for 30 minutes and it's already a battalion announcement. Like, stop shitting all over the place. You know, like, who does that? You know, meanwhile, I had just dropped a panic one, you know what I mean, on the stairwell, you know, in the corner. Because when you got to go, you got to go, right? You know, I looked over at my spotter and I was like, I have to go right now. He goes, you're serious? And I go, right now. I don't have a choice. You know, I'll be right back. Yeah. And in fact, a couple of the officers, because we were the first ones up on the roof, I had to add levity to it. Two of the majors came up and one of them, because they had to step over it. Yeah. And they go, God damn, somebody already shit up here. Nobody owned up to it. There was only 4 of us up there. I was like, whatever, you know, but yeah. Well, reflecting on that, did any of that stuff, like, did you ever have guys to the left or the right if you found yourself kind of going down that path where you were going to do something unbecoming or maybe had just done something where they kind of jerked you back? Did you have that to the left and right of you?
Yeah, I mean, there was times when, like when I talk about the killing, that one, you know, the chapter, right? Mm-hmm. The guy that was on post with me was like, just wait, you know?
Yeah.
But like, I already had my mind made. Like, we had clear circumstances to make that decision. And so I did.
And if you don't mind, for the audience sake, because that was a very, very powerful passage. Like, I read that a couple times because I was like, you know, and once again, I could immediately remember, you know, having been in some of the same scenarios. Yeah. Tell the audience, kind of drill down on it for the audience, if you don't mind, like what that story was.
Sure. So we were on post and on the government center in Ramadi, and it's in the center of town. And there was an old man in the wire, and he was acting really weird and moving things. And so we had orders at that point that anyone within the wire, we've been getting blown up, anyone in the wire is to be killed. So I was like, shit, there's a guy in the wire, you know? And so I got up on my saw, and the guy that was on post with me was like, just wait a second. I'm like, no, he's in the wire, you know? And so told him, like, hey.
Squad automatic weapon.
Yeah, saw squad automatic weapon. So I told him to stop, and there's a kiff, you know, and he kind of looks up, and I shot a burst. He like jumped around and ended up, me and another guy ended up killing him. So it was something I got investigated for, you know, I guess, or I don't know if it was investigated. I don't know how you say it for what it was. You know, I had to talk to the JAG officer. Mm-hmm. And
an inquiry at the very least.
Yep. And so
why do you think, and please don't, you know, like I said, please don't answer or expound on anything you don't want to or can't. Why do you think? Because the Marine that was telling you to wait, he was senior, correct?
Was senior, yep.
Why do you think he was hesitant?
I don't know. You know, I don't know, because I don't know his mindset. I don't, you know, just the circumstance, you know.
Did you have a close relationship with him at the time?
Yep.
Did your actions affect that relationship in any way, shape, or form?
You know, I think it may have. He's a funny guy. Like he's quite a big personality. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff that he and I had done, you know, experienced together where he could have just been annoyed with me for being, you know, too fun, you know, goofy or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I think that it could have played a role in that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How did the inquiry make you feel? Like being questioned, right? Because I understand where you're coming from 100%, and I'm not, but would never sit here and say, because I was in that situation myself a few times, right? Which is why I'd like to kind of drill, because I think it's an interesting, you know, situation to be in where you have orders, and there's one thing that's kind of unanimous throughout the Marine Corps is you don't question them. Your orders are your orders. You follow them to the T, the end, period, end of story. And then you can have a very black and white interpretation of it. No, anybody inside the wire gets smoked. He's in the wire, I'm smoking him. The end. Like, why are we debating this?
Yep.
Right? Why are we debating this? But yet, you have two individuals sitting there, right, and kind of watching the same movie, and yet there's one person who's like, rules are rules, orders are orders. I'm well within the rules of engagement to do this, so this is happening. Versus another one that's like, hey, let's wait. Like, wait for what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And who knows? Only, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to talk about, because at the end of the day, when the Marty and Kanan died, two guys that were my friends died, I wasn't willing to wait for anything to have another potentially, have another outcome like that. I didn't want to be responsible.
That could be avoided.
For, like, to me, like, let's kill this dude. There's plenty of signage. Why is he here? We have orders. We can kill him. We're going to kill him. So no one else on our side has to get a letter home, or a knock on the door.
I agree.
And that's where my mindset was. I was tired of our guys dying. And so for me, it was cut and dry. It still doesn't mean that, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't mean like I'm like high-fiving my bros, especially the fact that he, like, before he died, the man looked up at my post. Looked up at me,
Yep.
And it's just like, there I am at 19.
Yep.
Making a decision to erase all of his existence,
Yep.
So
I bet, yeah, 100%, dude. I can relate 1,000%.
And it's like, it's so much easier. It's funny just talking about all this stuff. I wonder, like, okay, am I coming off as like so weak and beat down? And I don't feel that way. I think the weight of, and I think what a lot of veterans struggle with, at least a lot of the guys that have been in heavy combat, and the people I've talked with, guys like you and I or whatever, when you're in that amount, unless you have like a diagnosed like psychopath tendency, you carry that. If it's something that's like a weird decision or like a non-easy combat decision. Again, like the Taliban I killed, they needed to die. Great job, America. We fought what we were doing. We did what we were supposed to do there. But some of the other ones, it's like you wear that on your shoulders the rest of your life. Yep. And I think that's where combat changes your soul question that you had, one of the first ones. It's like, how many of those events do you feel like need to add up on, how many of those can you hold on your shoulders before it's just too much weight? And I do wonder, like, if that's some of the suicide stuff and, people, the shame brought with that and having that, yeah, I think that's what we see,
I 100%. I couldn't agree more. I read that passage twice, and I won't be self-indulgent. I had similar scenarios where, not to drill down on it hard, where it was like the rules of engagement for us were very, very cut and dry, right? Military age males, like I said, okay, well, what does that mean? And if they're strong enough to pick up a weapon system, well, that's pretty young, right? But at the time, I was very much black and white, rules are rules. I used to say, and I'm not proud of this, it's why we're talking about it, like, if you give me competent authority, in other words, if I'm doing what I'm told, then at the time I would have done whatever I was told, and did in some, aspects. They fell within the rules of engagement. That person falls within the rules of engagement, and then it started to change where the minute people got the impression that we were, I don't say this lightly, kind of enjoying ourselves, then the rules of engagement has changed real quick. And you talk about the shame and and I don't regret, like I said, anything that I did. I don't have any questionable anythings, right? Everyone was clearly within the rules of engagement. but like you said, that doesn't matter. Years later, and for me, it was years later when I like to say kind of like the robot kind of wore off and I really started to, start to process some of those things. Then that weight is very, very noticeable. Like I said, proud that I was there, proud that I raised my hand, ashamed that we were even there to begin with and put in that situation. Yeah. Right. It's one of those things where, man, you ask for it and you get everything and then some, and then spend the rest of your life wondering if you should have asked for it or not. Like I got everything I asked for.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the shit I didn't, right. Yeah. Well, when you got questioned with the JAG officer, the military lawyer equivalent, were you combative? Like, how did that make you feel?
To be honest, I vaguely remember it. I remember like walking up and waiting outside of a door, and I think I don't know if I blacked out. It was just kind of like what is this? What am I even? What's the purpose here? Why?
Yeah.
And it was legal. Like we had the orders, and I told the dude to stop. What's the problem? He didn't stop. And it wasn't a problem. That's why I didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You didn't do anything right.
But like you said, it still doesn't mean that you don't have that weight, and then that question, because then it's like, okay, shit, was like, should I not have?
I guess that's what I was trying to get to.
Like, oh my God, but I was doing what I was allowed to do. Like, why are you now saying I can't do that?
Right.
Or like I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And in the confusion of everything and of just being there, surrounded by death, it didn't seem like an out of the ordinary thing to do. It was just like, that's it. Like, you did, like, the signs are posted. We have our ROEs, and I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to. So, and that's what it was. It was like, oh my God, now I'm hung out to dry, and now you're putting me in a position as a combatant to now second guess some trigger pulling. And is that better for everyone around us? No. So it's just a really weird thing to have to go through. You're about to do the hardest thing. I don't care what anybody says, right? Like, I don't care what anybody says. Taking a human life is hard. Yep. Maybe not in the physical action because it's a snap decision, you versus me, right? And then you make that decision, but living with it and processing it is one of the hardest things ever, right? Yep. Especially when your peers are questioning it.
That's right, 100%. Now you add the weight of possibly like what indecision or hesitation, or did I do the wrong thing? Like I can't stress. It's the worst feeling ever. Yep. It's the worst feeling ever because you're not really feeling great about what you had to just do, and now you're being questioned. Yeah. And obviously it didn't go anywhere because you were totally within. And like I said, I dealt with it too. We were doing what we were supposed to do. And as just like within days of the kind of the climate changing, pretty soon it's like, well, don't do it unless they're pointing at you, or don't, now try and shoot it out of their hands or some shit. There's kind of some ridiculous, requests of capabilities like shoot it out of their hands. Like, what are you talking about, And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, well, if we're going to be questioned, there's no worse feeling than trying to explain to your hires the ROEs that they gave you. Yeah. Right? Yep. Like, why did you, on one of mine in particular, why did you do that? Yeah. Well, because you told me that I could and that I should. Yep. Why are you asking me? And it's a disgusting feeling, right?
It is. And it's weird too, like you brought up the changing ROEs. Like it reminded me, I don't think I even talked about it in there, but like throughout the deployment, things would change. Mm-hmm. The enemy is now using cell phones to call in instead of like garage door openers are using cell phones to call in and blow up these IDs. So anyone that's on a cell phone,
fair game.
Fair game. And, or like a cell phone under these specific circumstances or these, and it would adjust. And it's just like, wow, that's crazy. You're asking us in a sense to, and this is where it comes back to like, you're asking us to do war, but under a lot of rules that are confusing. And
very confusing.
war is the last option. And anyone's, you watch the politicians on the TV, and online now, and they're like, unfortunately, it might come to this. It's like, that's easy to say. But when you have stipulations and you have other things attached to it that the kids are going to have to go fight, you're asking a lot. It's like a very poor investment in our country. You're putting your money on the wrong thing, unless you're willing to do like total war.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like, do we have the stomach for it? Right. Do we, and
especially with how weak I do feel. I mean, it's changed, but like for a long time there, we were our mentality as an American society is kind of weak.
Mm-hmm. And I think after 20 plus years, I mean, more than that, depending on
war,
what timeline you want to, kind of adhere to, I think we're war weary.
Yeah.
I think there was a time where I thought that I would raise my hand until, I couldn't raise my hand anymore, and after 26 years, and I'm not saying every single second of that was in combat, but Iraq, Afghanistan, like somebody else's turn.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's
totally.
or if we're not, we better have clear, like, why are we doing this?
Yeah. There better be a good why. Like, why am I fighting for my country, for your, God, if that's what is driving you, I feel like there's been plenty of examples of why we should be in certain conflicts around the world since, if you're wanting to talk about the whys, but we haven't, and that's fine. I don't feel like our guys should be there necessarily. But at the same time, there's better whys for those than there were why we were in Ramadi.
Right. Well, why were we in Ramadi?
I don't know.
Of course.
I don't know why we were there.
Did you
to help with a turnover, that ended up, the hard thing is this. I left Ramadi and there was a nice skyline of buildings. In 2012, was it? ISIS took it over and everything was just like destroyed. Like, what the fuck were we doing there? Mm-hmm. We gave it up. They won.
Yeah. Yeah. And for what?
For what?
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough, dude. I with the exception of maybe the guys from, World War II, and I'm not, this isn't me. That's the last thing I do was, especially with the drafts, and guys, kind of getting, forced into it. There's no kind of about it, if they were drafted in, if they didn't volunteer, I think the why is at the time couldn't have mattered less to me, after I got done. And after I left, with Iraq and Afghanistan in the rearview mirror, especially the way we left Afghanistan, when we were in Afghanistan, I was like, this is like you said, this is pretty cut and dry, right? There's bad guys, they're doing bad stuff. Not only are they harboring and fostering, but they're terrorizing the people and so on and so forth, right? It's very, very, no questions about Afghanistan, right? But Iraq was like, it did not take me I don't even think we had left yet, where I was like, okay, why did we do this?
Yeah.
Why were we here? And that's painful. It's you almost feel like a useful idiot. You feel like that you were abused. Now, granted, I was raising both hands. A willful participant.
Yeah, definitely.
But when you with those experiences comes that wisdom. And you start to experience the loss, not only, your personal, life, limb, eyesight, your friends, your teammates, like, then the why becomes very important, which is probably a ridiculous thing to say out loud, like, because the why is always important. But I think it's almost like you have to go through it to really, the why is what matters.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of out of our control. Yep. Right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that's why I talk about, I don't want to say what I said in there because I like that little nugget I left in there about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. But that's why I feel that way. Like, of all of both the conflicts that I was fighting in, like, Afghanistan made the most sense for us to be there. Mm-hmm. And I witnessed them, the Taliban, taking things from people and, not allowing us to go there and actually give them aid. We did a lot of good there. as we're fighting the Taliban, right? But then we just leave all the people that we, everyone that we worked with there and we helped build into a good source, a good anything. We just left them high and dry. And so why, and again, now why? Now why are we leaving that way?
Yeah, tradition mostly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's like we have the why to be there, and I can say like this is why we're there. But now why did we leave the way we did? It's like we're just leaving a lot of fucking whys as a country.
Yeah,
just talking this through, like why? We should have a reason to have left the way we did, and I can't get. I've talked with people, and it's just like why? It's just always some bullshit, like long-winded way of saying no one really knows.
Yeah, it's like don't ask why because there isn't an answer. Just I don't want to call it standard ineptitude. There is. I don't think anyone could ever give me a reason, having spent the amount of time that I spent in Afghanistan.
Yeah, you spent way more time than I ever did.
And when I got there, the whole reason why I went there was because I hadn't been there in the service, and I wanted to experience, that conflict, that culture, that everything, right? And within a week of being there, I was like, we are going to be here for generations, or we should leave right now. Like that, like this is, if we don't stay here forever, if this is just America Part 2 for the most part, like, then we ought to just leave. Yep. Like we're kicking water uphill at this point, and I think the conflict had been going on for roughly 10 years at that point, so fair assumption that wasn't me, reading tea leaves, you know what I mean? It was just like it was very, very evident. You didn't have to be there very long to figure that out, right? The old saying, you guys have the watches, but we have the time.
Yeah.
They're just gonna wait it out. And, but yeah, I don't think anyone could give me a reason that would satisfy me of why we left the way we left.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a reason that exists. I can't, and it fucked me up for weeks. It still fucks me up if I think about it too hard. Why there cannot be a logical reason why we did what we did, and if there is one, I probably don't want to hear it because I'm sure I wouldn't agree with it. Right? Yeah, it's super. Once again, that's an episode unto itself, right? That was so fucked up. It had to be on purpose. But why would that? What would the purpose be?
It's so fucked up when you have things like Pineapple Express happening with a bunch of dudes that are like doing it on their own accord,
right? Because
they give that many fucks about the people there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah, it's that didn't surprise me at all. Because and you had this experience, like the Afghans that we worked with on, like we owed them, in my opinion, we owed them,
totally.
We owed them better than what we did, without a shadow of a doubt. And, whoever made that decision it's clear has never, been in our situation.
No.
Because no one that's been in our scenarios and our situations would do that.
No.
And I'm sure it's naive of me to say or what have you, but, I think we've earned our opinions.
Yeah.
I'm not going to apologize for my
speech.
Right, exactly.
At the very least.
Exactly. We kind of already hit on this, and there's a lot of this in the book. The fleeting compassion and the lack of humanity, and kind of that process that I think everybody goes through, to a certain extent or another, right? Kind of like you coined the phrase, like, slowly turning into that monster. How long did you notice? Did you know that was happening at the time? Could you feel it? Could you sense that kind of slow? Because it happens so fast from situation to situation, but once you start going down that path, at least for me, once I started going down that path, it was a scary place to be, because you've lost your own humanity, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I don't know. I think we kind of touched on this earlier. Maybe it was around end of June, sometime in July. But I don't remember like a scenario or an event that happened that crossed that line. I think it was just the layering of situations and layering of confusion. And I don't remember what that time was, but that it just like happened, you know, and it wasn't just me. It was I think everyone around started wearing it a certain way, you know. So yeah.
Where you found yourself, and once again, you know, share as much as you'd like to share. Did you ever find yourself right up to that hairy edge of doing something, almost talking yourself into doing something that could possibly be very unbecoming?
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched on it in that there's a guy that used to walk by my post almost every day, you know, and he'd like, you'd be carrying stuff, and it was like he had this smug smile, and he kind of looked up and kind of like, you know, he was just wearing, he just had that character about him. And then it's not like I you know, we'd all put our sights on him. Like, is he holding anything? Does he have, you know, do you see anything poking out of that bag? Is there anything, you know?
Just looking for a reason.
Just fucking trying to find a reason to kill this dude. And because he was just throwing it in our face at that, just taunting us, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just like, motherfucker, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the closest that I ever came to that. And then, you know, I never shot him. I don't know if anyone else ever did, but it came to a point where I actually drew him.
Yeah.
On post. I drew somewhere. I should try to find that. I have a drawing of him.
I'm going to get you.
And yeah, it was just like, this motherfucker.
You're right. No,
that was it. I guess it was that at that point, because he was just taunting us at that point.
It's when I think back to some of you know, similar situations, it's terrifying.
Yeah,
it's terrifying how quickly you get there.
Yeah,
you know how quickly you get there, and you know, I'm not trying to sound over dramatic when I say it. Like, it is in reflection terrifying to. It's almost like I was a different person.
Oh yeah, I think you are. You know. And like the way at least my therapist has talked to me about it is like you can, like, your body chemically just change, your brain chemically changes with that amount of stress on it. You know, you're quite literally getting it down to the core of fight or flight, of primal reactions, primal thinking. You know. Again, that's why I believe that, I don't know if I touched on this or not, but like violence doesn't really have to be taught. I mean, you can teach it. You can teach techniques of violence. But I think at the end of the day, violence is at everyone's core, and anyone is capable of it. If all of the right circumstances line up, anyone is capable of it, because it's a primal thing. You know, you're either going to be the victim or you're going to be the aggressor. So, yeah. I think that goes back to that.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. I was, and I don't want to say, it's such a mixture of emotions where you can't, you know, shame is there, regret is there, you know, pride is there, depending on, you know, the scenario. In your mind, like, you know, with the pressures that that are put upon an individual in that scenario, it's bananas what your kind of mind will justify, right? One particular scenario for me was, I don't even remember where we at. It doesn't matter. You know, not to Baghdad yet, and took some, you know, real loose mortar rounds. Like, we were kind of circled up, eating you know, chow, just trying to eat chow. Couple mortars come in, you know, pretty close enough, and after everybody, you know, dives for cover, and, you know, heads come out of the Humvees and all this, you know, it's find the mortar team, right? Well, when they say find the mortar team, who does everybody look at? The guy with the sniper rifle, right? So find him, you know, and so I went to the only, you know, place where I thought the direction of fire came from, and guess what? Got up on top of the cat vehicle and found two guys about 450, 500 yards out, and I was like, got him.
Yep.
You know, the mortar tube's right in front of them. You know what I mean? Like, and the lieutenant was like, are you sure? And I had my weapon system up over the gunner at this time, close friend of mine, tow gunner. I won't use his name, but the lieutenant's like, I'm looking down at lieutenant. I'm in the scope, and lieutenant's down on the ground. He's like, let me call command, make sure you can, your green light. He's like, are you positive? And when he said positive, I had to look at him again.
Yeah.
And I hesitated because I couldn't tell. Like, I wanted it to be a mortar tube. I needed it to be a mortar tube.
Yep.
Everybody wanted it. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Even the tow gunner, who's a very good friend of mine to this day, he kind of leaned over and whispered, he goes, just tell him you're sure, And I said, I'm positive.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, green light. And I clicked it off safe. And I was like, I'm going to take the left one, then I'm going to take the right one.
Yep.
And what do you think they did with my mortar tube? They just picked it up and started hoeing the row again because it was just a piece of farm equipment.
Yeah.
And I almost smoked those dudes because everybody wanted me to. I wanted to. Like, we needed an answer, after being mortared, and man, am I glad,
It's crazy how many times that happens. Like, I talk about shooting palm fronds or whatever they are.
Yeah.
It's like you swear to God. Like,
without a doubt
that's a person that's shooting at me, and similar situation in Afghanistan. We had a younger Marine, and he's like, there's this guy, he's behind this motorcycle, and like we were in contact at this point, and I'm like, why are you talking to me about this? He's like, can you confirm it with me? And I pull up on my ACOG, and I look, and it's a family hiding behind a motorcycle. They're pinned in the middle of the street, and I'm like, dude, like that, no, that's a family.
Yeah, don't cross that line.
Like, in his mind, that was the bad guy, and the confusion there and all that, and it's unfortunately a common thing,
Yep.
And like, I look back at that, and I did 4.5 years, 4 years and 5 months in the Marine Corps. And I had to extend to go do that MARSOC deployment. And my whole goal, not my whole goal, but like a part of the reason I wanted to go be a part of that was I wanted to be able to do better in combat for my second time.
Was it a form of redemption?
Yeah, I felt like it was like, I need to do better. I can do better, right? Mm-hmm. And that situation alone, it's like I saved that family, and I get kind of choked up about it because it's like, had I not done that, would someone have made the same decision?
Mm-hmm.
And like, those people, for that period of time, who knows what other units had, or had done going through there, but they lived because of that and because of the experience I had. So that was really important for me.
Yeah, for sure.
To have that,
Yeah, and having that operational maturity, right?
Yeah.
The operational maturity, and we've been talking about it, how do we do better? Is there a way to get those 18, 19, 20-year-olds more operationally mature? If there is, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like, I wish, I don't know how you do it. I really don't,
I had a thought at one point. It was like, give them a kid to take care of so they know what they'd be taking away from someone else.
Phew, yeah.
Like that. Like, that's the only way I could think that it would make sense.
Yeah, and then at the same time, it's that, that tightrope of, would we be making them less effective? It's like, we need the barbarian horde. We are. It's like, I saw this clip on IG the other day. He was an infantry officer. I don't know what his name was, but he was like, hey man, we're not CQB guys. We're not hostage rescue guys. This is the Marine Corps infantry.
Yeah.
Like, we are the bulldozer. Like, if you got a major problem you want solved, you throw the Marine Corps infantry at it, and we're going to solve it by destroying everything in our path.
Yeah, 100%.
And he is 100% correct, But then if that's not what needs to happen, but that's all you've trained us to do, and you have to have some operational maturity and some, like, how do you do that? Because now, like you said, you're shaking hands, your coin operations, your hearts and minds, and I get it, and it's completely contrary to what you've been trained to do.
Yep.
And it is a very confusing and very stressful. Like, it's not very stressful when you're just crushing everything.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
No, it's not. I mean, that's easy.
Right.
You're trained to do it.
Yeah,
and at that age, even in that mindset, you're okay with it,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Yeah, I think that I was a little bit older, not the ripe old age of, like I said, 23, at the time.
When you went in, or
when I was in the invasion,
okay, yeah.
because I went in right after high school, 1998, and spent some time at Fast Company, and then was at 1-5 for, like I said, the better part. It was probably 3.5 years, by the time we were over there. I can remember, and this isn't me patting myself on the back, but just talking about like the operational maturity before we went, as the chief scout, loose control or loose command. You have your lieutenant, you have your platoon sergeant, and then you have your chief scout, which is the senior guy. And 4 teams, 5 teams, right? And I said, hey, there's 2 things that I never want to hear about. I never want to hear or see anybody taking pictures with dead enemy combatants. Like, if they're brave enough to fight you and they lose, like, don't dishonor yourself by taking, he paid for it. The game's over with him, don't, right? And definitely no indiscriminate targets.
Yep.
Like, you have a sniper rifle, you don't have an excuse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to see what you're doing. And you may not get a chance. You know what I mean? Like, if I hear about someone doing exactly what we're talking about, then, I will take a personal interest in seeing that it comes to light. We're not going to do that. That is not what we're here to do. Yeah. And I don't think it happened. It probably did. I hope it didn't, But I don't think I would have been saying those things if I was 18 or 19.
Yeah.
I really don't.
And that's why I say, I think I say in the book, but it's like future wars at this point with where we are as a society, where everything, it needs to be like those decision makers that have that foresight, that have that experience, or that ability to slow down,
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Because it's so fast paced and things happen so fast, and we were asked to make very, very tough decisions in a very unstable and uncertain environment, right? And then, like I said, we get the rest of our life to reflect on it and wonder if we made the right decisions.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any experience of guys, dwelling on those mistakes, or kind of getting a little, putting their toe over that edge, if you will, a little there, there's scorched earth, and then there's scorched earth. You know what I mean? You kind of got to reel some guys back in a little bit.
Not really. I mean, I didn't see anything from our end, like in our platoon, our company, that I was like, damn, I don't remember any of that.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, did we hear about things that had happened in theater? Yeah.
Sure.
Not anything from anything that I was there to witness or hear, that I knew the people personally. So, so that's good, because it's a weight regardless, but that'd be a heavy weight, right? And, I look at like what's happening in Russia and Ukraine right now with some of the things that I've heard the Russians have done, on their push back even in 2022. And it's like, damn, like if they survive that, they're going to, if they're still alive in this war, and they were a part of some of the things that I saw on TV or on online, on Telegram, whatever. If they're still alive, that's a weight that they're going to be bearing once that bit of humanity comes back to them,
Yeah, for sure.
If it does, and I think that's where you see some of the guys that struggle even on the U.S. with decisions. Some of the decisions we might not think are very bad, but they're wearing like it's the worst thing ever. And the only way that they keep that down is to drink it away, or to do to beat themselves up, treat themselves like shit. And they're, there's no forgiveness from their end.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I look at that stuff and it's like, damn,
Yeah, it's like you said, it's decisions. You make decisions, and then you live with them for the rest of your life. And like you said, unless you're a sociopath, you're going to drill down, right? Yeah. You're going to drill down on it constantly. And I'm sure, I have personal friends that were put in situations and did 100% the right thing at the time. Yep. It just turned out, to had been a mistake. Yep. But at the time it wasn't. At the time, it was not a mistake. Having to deal with, vehicles and IEDs and things of that nature where, you basically have proximity. Like, hey, if this vehicle gets within this, distance from you, then it's weapons free. Go ahead and light it up, right? And then
same thing. I mean, we do have something. I do have a situation like that, and that not for me personally, but that happened, and I know some of the people involved, and destroys them.
It destroyed them, right? It just a very very close friend of mine. He's gonna and we've had endless conversations. I'm like, you did not, you did what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't, and it could have easily gone the other way. Yep. I'm sure that provides no solace. I wish it did, right? Yeah. Living with it is difficult. And I think you're right. I think the people that lose that last shred of humanity and start, doing things, truly becoming that unadulterated monster, I think they live with that and they struggle with that, and it probably ultimately destroys them, at some point, when it comes back, or at least it should.
Yeah. At the end of the day, like everything we've just been talking about for the last half hour or whatever it is the heaviest shit that no one, from my experience, really enjoys talking about. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the weight that a lot of combat veterans carry. And I would say it's not weak to talk about it. It's real. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be addressed, because the younger generations that are going to be our warfighters need to understand the gravity of their decision when they're behind that trigger. Mm-hmm. If like my goal with the book is, if one person reads this that's a junior Marine or just a Marine, anyone, combatant for our country, they read this and they say, let me gather a little more information before I make this decision. If it's that questionable of a time, like, let that be something that they don't have to, that burden to be on them. Let that be something they don't have to carry.
Absolutely.
And that would be a win in my book if even one person does.
It should be required reading. It should be on the Commandant's reading list. It probably will be on the, if you're listening, Marine Corps, it should be on the Commandant's reading list, because it's very raw. It's very open, as I like to say, open kimono. And, it was brave to write that, right? I'm sure it was, because who likes to talk about, the mistakes?
Well, yeah, totally. And especially in a era of trolls, right? And I know I'll get my fair share of whatever. It's something I had to come to terms with writing it and publishing it, but like, that's still, like, to put it in perspective, and I think you could identify with this, is there's no amount of trolling that could happen to relieve the weight of some of the things that we have to carry on the day-to-day, like, as far as like the things that are already on my mind. Like, there's nothing that could be said. I've already done that to myself.
Yeah, without a doubt. I experienced it actually when I came off the roof in Baghdad, and we had been up there for a couple of days, and this was kind of something that I never thought I would experience. But we were walking through, my team was walking through kind of we call it a gaggle of Marines. I'm not sure what company they were with. It doesn't matter, but everybody, sitting around smoking, joking, eating MREs, whatever. And we were walking through and just kind of making our way through them. Hey, excuse me, guys, whatever. And they're like, get some snipers. What, oorah, murder, or so, like, basically made a comment, like, called us murderers, basically we're saying that we were up there just indiscriminately, which couldn't have been farther from the truth. Yep. But I was like, man, if a fellow Marine is saying that, like, that doesn't make me feel good. Yeah. Of course,
that's how they're seeing you. If that's not what you feel like they're seeing you.
Yeah, it was a derogatory comment without a doubt, and it wasn't like, I was going to stop in the middle of 25 of them and say, who said it? You know what I mean? And get tuned up, you know what I mean? Because there was a lot of them. But it's, even in your own ranks, right? Yeah. Like some people will troll you, but yeah, no, it should be required reading, and there's so many good lessons in this book, right? I still have notes here. It says, on page 49, after you had your platoon suffered KIAs, and I'll let you, go into as much detail as you would like to go into. You got a glimpse after everything was kind of said and done, and you locked eyes or looked at the chow hall workers, and you wanted to kill them. Mm. Do you remember that?
No.
It's in there.
I mean, I don't remember how I worded it, but yeah, just the Chow Hall Marines, you mean?
Iraqi, third country not third country national. What's the acronym we always use? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
They're the Iraqi workers, in the camp or in the fob, And when I read
Iraqi Sodex,
Sodex, I can remember reading that, and when you have a KIA, a WIA, KIA, when someone is wounded or someone is killed, the unadulterated rage, you know what I mean, find me a victim, find me some type of redemption, some type of retribution. Yep. Is that fair?
Yeah. I think that's what everyone, and the irony is what did your friend say, your buddy, or he's a platoon commander or someone that said something about becoming the enemy? What was that? That.
Oh,
we are the enemy in someone else's story.
We're the bad guy in somebody else's story.
Yeah. And so, when we're doing the same thing out there, on town, it's it's just a revolving door of hate. Mm-hmm.
It's a sickening feeling.
It's a necessary piece of war because, back in the day, you'd have the enemy, and it was clear they had uniforms, they had a reason they were fighting that was that they were, I guess, honorable enough to stand behind a uniform with. Mm-hmm. And now we're fighting an enemy that is blending in with the local populace. And so you're wondering, who is my enemy? Which one of you is going to kill me now, or try to kill me, Mm-hmm. And so I think that's probably where it was alluding to of who do you know, looking at the workers, who do you know in your life that might know the person who killed my friends? Mm-hmm. And so, it's this rage, Yeah,
it's when you go through something like that, and prior to having that experience, if you, we look at some of the not proud moments in American history, the My Lai massacre or, whatever, and you think before you have these experiences, you're like, how in the fuck did that happen?
Yeah.
How did anybody let that happen? If I would have been there and ba-da-da. And then you go through that experience and you're like, I'm surprised that doesn't happen more often. Yep. I can 100% see how we get there and get there in a hurry.
Well, and I would say it's an attestament. It's a nod to the Marine Corps' ability to prep people for, as best you can, that experience, right? Mm-hmm. Still having control of yourself when you're in that fight or flight, mm-hmm. Even to have a leader, a platoon leader who's smart enough to say, instead of saying, "Are you sure?" they say, "Are you positive?" Mm-hmm. And that word, that verb, the verbiage, made you pause. Mm-hmm. And so, to have those leaders around us, and in that time, I don't remember what our lieutenant gave us for a speech, but I want to say it was something hey, we got to still do our job, and we're not there to just do things, do terrible things, when we lost Marty and Canaan, so that I want to say was also there to play in an important part when my mind was in that rage. Mm-hmm. To be we still have a job to do, and we still are accountable for our actions. Mm-hmm. So, and that's just the importance of the leadership,
I agree. And it read in the book, it sounds like you had, pretty decent leadership for the most part.
Amazing. Very fortunate. Mm-hmm. So
like I said, I can't stress it enough how it's it literally scares me to death sometimes when I'm thinking about it, the fact that I was even capable of getting to that place, you know, and I think at some point everyone goes to that place, you know, at some point or other, you know. I never want to go there again.
No.
You know, like I never want to get to that spot ever again. You know, God willing, hopefully I won't. But you brought up, you know, younger individuals or people that are, you know, thinking about enlisting or joining into the service, reading this book. You have children of your own.
Yeah.
What would you, if your children decide that they want to serve the country, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my wife and I've had talks about this, and I'm supportive of it because I love my country, you know. I think I'd want them to understand, well, a couple things. Like, I'd want them to do something within the military. I'd have them go officer. I'd say go be an officer, number one, you know. Because I think that the viewpoint from that is a lot more mature. You know, they have a little bit of experience behind that from school or whatever. But to have just that experience and be set up, if they choose to leave their service, to be set up in a different way than I was, because you know, I very much appreciated how in the movie The Pacific, when he comes back home, he's trying to apply for a job, and she's like, "Well, what are your skills?" You know, and he was like, I think it was E.B. Sledge. You know, he was like, "Well, I was a mortarman or something, and I killed people." And like, I had a similar experience going to a job fair in the middle of the recession in 2010, trying to find some work, and someone's like, "Well, what do you do?" And I was like, "It was an infantry Marine." And she's like, "And none of those skills can translate into something that you could do here?" And I'm like, "Well, I'd like the leadership and stuff." And she's like, "Well, what about, like, what did they teach you to do?" I was like, "Kill people." You know?
Yeah. The end.
Like, the end. You know, so having like my kids be set up to do something, they'll be a pilot.
Yeah, right.
Go do something that that doesn't, you know, eat so much of your soul away.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Because I love them and I want to see them be successful. And I if they have the desire to serve, I who am I to say no? You know. But I think just being like having more of the information, you know. And my dad was very supportive of me doing the military, but he's a very, you know, he experienced a small amount of combat on that Maya Gez incident, but he wouldn't talk about it much. So I wasn't very informed as to what really, like, was someone that I loved and cared about. I didn't really know how it could have affected him and how it did affect him, you know, until we actually watched Black Hawk Down together, and the helicopter went down and he started crying, and I was like, "What's going on, Dad?" You know,
it's taking him back.
Yep. And it was like, you know, and that was a Huey he was in, but at the same time, you know, it was like, that was the first time I heard anything about that. But to have, I think for my kids, to have them understand this is how it affected me and this is why I am the way I am. And I'm trying to be the best man I can for you, but it's a lot of work. I'd rather have them be set up to, you know, serve their country if they choose to do that in a way that they can maybe not be a trigger puller, you know? But if they choose it, that's their life. Just be an officer. There's
better ways to do it, right?
Yeah.
I ask this question all the time. If your 40-year-old self could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, knowing everything that you know now, what would you? And know, like, your 18-year-old, you're going to go to the School of Infantry. You know you're going to go to one, like, you know the path. Like, you get the chance to go back and grab your younger self by the lapel and go, "Hey, man, what would you say?"
Then I had to go through the same thing.
Like, yeah, you know, you're going through, your 18-year-old self doesn't know what's happening, but your 40-year-old self, you know, Back to the Future style shit. You know what I mean?
All right. Damn, man. Let me think here. Yeah, think here.
It's heavy. You know, and could you think you would say anything that would change? Would you try and talk yourself out of it? Would you try and, you know, data dump the past 20 years? You know, it's almost an unanswerable question, right?
It is. I don't know what I would say, because at the end of the day, would I make my 18-year-old self second guess a decision that would have maybe kept him alive?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I don't like fucking with history like that. I can just say that I would know what I would tell my kids, which is what I just said. Because knowing what I know, I don't think I wouldn't be in a position to be able to reflect the way I have on the things that happened. And for some reason, you know, like I said, I believe in God, and God has me writing the book I wrote. You know, I wrote that out of my intuition, out of my to help me process things, but also to make the decision to publish it. And I think that if my story helps keep one person from feeling the things that I've had to carry, or, you know, having to carry those things, that's a win in my book. And if I were to change that, like butterfly effect,
right?
Would that ever exist? And could I maybe have changed something later? I don't know. So I'd say nothing. I would just say, trust your gut is what I'd tell my 18-year-old self.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's what that's what my old man told me. He had, 3 tours in Vietnam, and, before I was getting ready to go, that was kind of it. He was like, hey, just trust your gut. The second piece of advice was stay away from stupid people. They'll get you fucking killed. He's like, other than that,
well, you and I have done that,
right? We're still here. And I didn't do anything stupid enough to get anybody else killed. At least I don't think so. It's an interesting thought experiment, right? Because I have 2 young children. I have 3 children, but 2 of them are younger, and they're both both have expressed interest, right? They're surrounded by it. Mom is, all the aunts and uncles, all the great, it's a large footprint in the family, right? And it's going to be, and they're ongoing discussions, right? Like my 14-year-old talks about it like past tense. Like she's already on her second tour in her head. She's like, oh, when I move out of the barracks, and I'm like, hold on a minute, so we're gonna have some real kind of candid, eyes wide open, like you said, like. There is a way to do it. There's the way we did it, or I did it, right? Everyone, and I think the infantry, and especially, with some of the more, your snipers, your MARSOC, your reconnaissance Marines, I bet you pilots, this would be, like where the job becomes like your identity. Yeah. And when your job is in a pilot, I'm just going to speak for the infantry stuff, right? Recon, sniper, MARSOC, infantry. When your job is your identity, and you get out, or you transition, like it isn't that you necessarily don't have marketable skills. It's you don't understand, your identity doesn't fit into anything normal.
You become that person that we were talking about earlier that walks on base and says, I used to.
Right.
And it's like you're immediately that person.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to find, it's hard to let that identity go. Yeah. It's hard to shed that identity, and it's painful, and it's a long process, not, hey, this is me. I'm a, this or that. That's something that I used to do. Yeah. And I think people have a hard time kind of turning that page. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, totally.
That's almost the first step, is to kind of, no one can ever take it away.
No. I think it is realizing that it's kind of like the kid that you go back to your like high school, or you go back to your hometown or something, and you run into the kid in high school who's still talking about the plays and,
in football.
And it's like, that's all they are still. They're at the bar, and they're still talking about those plays. That's their existence. And it's like, well, like I felt like I'm bound for something else, and I'm like still seeking that. I still feel like I'm on this journey in life, and I'm very proud of my service in the Marine Corps. But that's not who I am. I'm always a Marine, and you're always a Marine. But it was a couple. I'd say it took like 2 years of being out for me to kind of drop that. This is me, to like, that's a part of me, and having it as a part of me is great, because I don't have to be that, that's just something that happened, and I'm very proud of it. And there's like such a small community of people that are Marines that we get to be, we get to sit here and talk about this, we still get to do that, and that's a win, I guess. So from my experience, but it was definitely like that 2-year time frame of figuring out who am I now. Yep. Like I've changed so much. Like, who am I?
Well, what did you do? What did you do as soon as you got out? If you want to talk about like the kind of trials and tribulations of transitioning, like, did you have difficulties?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled. A lot of it was just so. The one thing that I've noticed is in my area, there's a lot of National Guard. So there's like that community of National Guard. They're soldiers that can bounce things off of each other, and their friends are there. They can go hang out. But when you're in the active duty Marine Corps, at least from my experience, it's like there's no one near me, and so I go from one moment being surrounded by my peers and people who get me to being alone. And that guy, I was that guy that went to Iraq. That guy that went to Afghanistan, and he must be dealing with stuff, but no one understands it, and so I felt really isolated. But I've tried to keep out of that. I was like, well, I'm gonna go to school. I went to get my degree, and but that was really weird because it was like all these shitbag 19-year-olds. I'm 22 at the time, and it's like, what do you mean you don't have your fucking paper here?
Yeah,
that's a basic fucking thing, idiot.
Yeah,
but like, so I couldn't get that either, and I just felt like this like old curmudgeon-y man at 22 with these kids that were only a couple years younger than me, and being like what world do we live in?
It's two different. I mean, you're in two different realities.
It was a shock.
Yeah,
and so. And I think you get that regardless of how long you're in the military. Once you leave that structure and that discipline to go see, being a civilian, what they used to call nasty civilians, as a Marine. Once I became a nasty civilian, it's kind of like, damn, like there's a lot to learn here, like how to be back in normal society.
Oh yeah,
like how to transition into. Like no expectations of anything. Like no one gives a fuck. I remember doing a job interview for as a financial advisor for a short time. I'm doing the job interview for that, and they were like, like one of the things that they asked, and it's a very pressured based interview, but they're like, he stated it just across from me. He's like, he looked at my resume. He's like, yeah, that's a good, nice long resume. No one cares what you used to do.
Oh, brutal.
And what it was is a test, right?
Yeah, see how you reacted.
I react to that, and I was like, yeah, you're right. Like no one does.
That's a good answer.
But it was like kind of like it was shocking. It was that same reaction, like, oh damn, like
wait, what?
Like, okay, that's brutal. But it's kind of true.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, nobody
cares.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah.
And I think there's that expectation though when you're in, especially when you're in combat and you're coming back and doing things. For our country, right? Like you come back and it's like, but people should know. You think like everyone has to agree the same mindset of like, but I did X or I did Y, and it's like no one cares. They're just trying to feed their families, go to work, come home, watch a sports game, and like go to bed and do the same thing. Like that's how great we have it here. It's a fucking great country. That's how life is. That we worry about the cost of like chips and other things, and we get to worry about that, So.
I couldn't agree more. It's veteran entitlement, right? Yeah. Veteran entitlement, and it's such a dicey subject, right? It is. You want to talk about trolls coming out of the internet, right? I had been on a show or two where we were kind of talking about this same thing, and it's totally understandable and relatable because I struggled with it too. Like the reintegrating back into, into kind of normal society, right? It's difficult. It's a struggle. However, I kind of like to turn that on its ass and say, you've gone through, pick your veteran, right? Yep. Have gone through theoretically some of the hardest shit ever that is imaginable, right? You survived it, yep. Right? In whatever state that you survived it in. And if you came out of it with 10 fingers and 10 toes, everything else should be a cakewalk.
Yep.
Why is, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying it's not hard to transition. It is hard. But at some point, you need to look at what you've done and what you were what you volunteered and put yourself through.
Raised your hand for.
That you raised your hand for, and not let, as we like to say, kind of civilian, the civilian, minuscule whatevers,
really kick your ass.
Yep. Because it just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's like I had he was our platoon sergeant, wherever it was in squad leader school. He was our squad leader, like our leader in squad leader school. It was the salty staff sergeant we had. And he's like, you have too much pride. And I was like, okay, like, what do you mean? We're fucking proud, And I think this is where a lot of veterans get caught. And, I've found myself in this same scenario before, being bitter or feeling sorry for myself. But it's like, he's like, no, you have too much pride in the worst kind, like pride as the acronym. And I'm like, well, what's that? And he's like, a personal reason I didn't excel. I was like, damn.
Whoa, yeah.
That's heavy. And it was like, yeah, you're too proud. And
a personal reason I didn't excel.
Yeah, and I think that we get stuck in that as veterans, especially like combat vets, or people that, you get stuck on the no one gets me. Why does no one get me? They don't get me because I'm a Marine. They don't get me because X, Y, Z. And it's like, no one's there. No one gives a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have to create the life we want to live. And I think like it goes back to the VA too, at least from my experience. Like I've been in the VA healthcare system, and from my experience with it, it's been good, but I've had to seek it out. No one's going to sit there and call me and say,
right,
you need to come here. It's your time. Or, you go show up and say, I need help. And they say, okay, we can't get you in for like 2 months. And like, there's two options there. You say, fuck you, I need help right now. I need to do whatever you need. Or you say, well, that's too bad. And you go home and feel sorry for yourself and like, don't find another way. There's another way. And it's changed a lot in the last several years with community care and everything. But I was there when the community care didn't exist. And I had to find a way to make it work because I had the will to live still, right? As much as I fought with suicidal thoughts and attempts at it, it's like I still need to be there, for some reason. I'm trusting my gut, And I guess that's the way I feel about it. It's like, don't be too proud to ask for help or to just reintegrate.
Yeah, I did. I sought help. It wasn't. It was a considerable time. Considerable amount of time afterwards, and I did all the atypical things. Excessive drinking and uncontrolled fits of rage and like just all of it. It's I think it takes that. I think it takes a very, very long time. I don't think you ever truly get done processing it all the way.
No.
You just get to a spot where you're able to, handle it well enough,
yeah.
You know what I mean? To function, in a normal society, right? Where, cause we've all seen the guys, right? That, after that third beer, it's, it starts, going down that path. And you're like, here we fucking go, man.
Beer is like dropping a wall that they've been,
yeah.
Fuck, man. There's a dam behind there. Like,
yeah. I'm not going to stick it. Don't buy that guy another round. Yeah. Go take a lap, dude. Yeah. But, I think in the entitlement, like, because once again, we've asked or we're asked to do some, kind of incredibly difficult things, right? But I think that because you are, if you're not proactive, like I've had a very similar experience with the VA. If I was extremely proactive and had, I don't have a whole lot of complaints, right? But I know some people do. And I think that kind of sit back and wait, for all of the good things that the Marine Corps structure or the military structure, is good for. I think one of the unfortunate byproducts is your kind of basic needs, chow, shelter, food, shelter, that is provided to you.
Yep.
Right. And so people leave with that, well, someone should give it to me or drop it in my lap.
Yep.
Because that's what we're used to. Right. Like if I'm out someplace, if I'm not packing my own food with me, food is going to be brought to me.
Yeah.
It's someone's job to do that.
Yep.
I don't have to go out and find it. Right. Most times,
Yeah.
And so I think that is one of the only, negative byproducts of the military structure is we don't do a good job preparing people. Like what is the out processing? 2 weeks?
That's what I was just going to ask because I'm just thinking about, I feel like it was like a week or two, yeah. And a lot of that's just you running around getting signatures on a sheet to make sure that you turned all your stuff in.
Right, yeah. And pay your tab at SIF or whatever because your helmet had a scratch on it or some shit.
I remember, speaking of that, I remember coming back from that deployment and like when my friends got killed, I had lost my neck protector at some point. I mean, my shit was all covered in blood, and like I had a different color neck protector. I went to SIF and they were giving me a hard time because I had to exchange it when I went to MARSOC. They're like, "Where's your neck protector?" And I'm like, "Well, like it was lost when my friends died. We got blown up, and like I don't know."
Yeah.
Well, like, do you have paperwork for that? And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like,
seriously?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, this is what we're worried about, right?
Dude.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
I 1,000%. So we are. Well, CIF stands for Civilian Issue Facility. Is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's close enough. Well, that was a new thing. Before it was like, to me or to us, it was new. So before we went to the invasion, it was like, turn in all of your shit. And now most of our stuff in the sniper platoon was ours. We just went out and bought it, but like your basic issue stuff, which I didn't have a whole lot of, you turn that back into, 1-5 battalion supply. And we're all going on buses and we're going over this new thing called CIF. Now, we thought it was the coolest thing ever because they bust out the shopping cart. That civilian goes around, grabs everything that you're supposed to have. You feel like you're getting catered to, like you just won the sweepstakes or some shit.
You're dumping it off the aisles at Toys R Us.
Yeah. Give me another one of those 2 cords or whatever, right? And then you sign for it. And then when we came back, and I don't know if you guys have heard the stories, but because of the amount of cross-decking and down vehicles, whether they were Humvees or the Amtraks were dropping like flies. So they were max capacity and then some. And to make room, everyone's packs are going on the outside of like the EK armor. Yep. So some people didn't have anything but what they were wearing on their bodies. There was some people that had their packs had been completely destroyed. One of the guys in my platoon who was a jokester, and I'm still friends with him to this day, he had like just a charred piece of isomat and the clothes he had on his body and his weapon. That's all he had. And he probably just picked up that charred piece of isomat, the sleeping mat, and that's what he walked up and handed in at the CIF, and we had one shower, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like plane lands, go to the CIF, and they didn't know what to do with us. They didn't know, like combat loss, it's gone. There's nothing to hand in, you know?
Like, this is not a sustainable model.
Yeah. And they were getting a case of the ass out of it. Well, you can imagine, we've been back in country for, as I remember, it might as well have been 15 minutes. Yeah. And I've got somebody giving me shit because I lost all my stuff in combat, legitimately lost it. Yeah. Legitimately lost it. It got blown up. It got set on fire. Whatever. Well, we don't know what to do here. I'm like, I don't know what to do either. Yeah. I don't know. And I don't think anybody had to pay for it. But when I left service, I had to pay. Yeah, that's I can't remember how much I owed them something for some piece of gear. It's like, if I got to pay you $500 just to get the fuck off you know what I mean? Like, I'll pay you double, or whatever. But the CIF, what a disaster. I wonder if they still have it.
I have no idea.
You could make a sitcom in itself, of the CIF. That place is so bizarre. What a bizarre concept.
It is, yeah. I didn't realize it had transitioned that recently to it,
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it was, the CIF stories were, because guys were just losing their minds. Yeah. Guys were just clicking off safe, right there at the counter. It was, I wish there would have been cell phones and GoPros and, because it would have been pretty funny to have that. To document, just people losing their minds. Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of the comedy aspect of it, the Otis Spunkmeyer muffin, do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why that hit me. Where you're in the middle of a tick or that, initiate contact, and instead of dropping it, I'm just going to the dude just shoves the whole muffin and I 1000% can see it and relate to it.
Yeah. I mean, that was that guy in a nutshell. Right? Just like, you didn't want to set this.
Hold on a minute.
So the Otis Spunkmeyer muffin, I mean, it's the chocolate, double chocolate one.
And they're awful.
Yeah, they're terrible. But like when you're out there, they're moist.
Yeah.
They're delicious. And so like you're eating this as like to stay on post, you know, we'd have them there or whatever. And so yeah, we got this one post got attacked, and I wasn't on that post, I was on one overlooking it and helped them out from there. But dude is sitting in his chair eating an Otis Spunkmeyer muffin, and they get under heavy fire. And so he just doesn't know what to do with it. He didn't want to set it down on the dirty floor. This is what he said later. Like, I didn't want to set it down on the dirty, like the floor and stuff. I wanted to finish it. And so he's like, shoves it in his mouth. And it's just like rocking his saw with Otis in his mouth. You know?
Yeah,
like,
big old cheek full of muffin. Yeah, at least if I catch one, at least I'm going out on a full stomach,
yeah,
right?
It's hilarious.
There's, once again, so you did such a good job with the book capturing all aspects, because there is so much. There's obviously tragedy.
Yeah.
You know, there's heartache, there's pain, but the comedy is, and you know, I love comedy. I'm a big fan of kind of the medium, you know. I try and joke around as much as humanly possible. I always tried to be that dude that, you know, the worse it got, the more jokes I would kind of make, you know, probably to the, you know, like, come on, dude, get serious. You know what I mean? Like, and I was serious as a heart attack in actions.
Yeah.
But there's no reason this can't be fun. Yeah. You know?
No, I totally agree.
You know? So the amount of comedy that you experience in those scenarios, those situations, you know, I was glad to read some of that stuff in there. Thank because you, I was laughing. As many tissues as I was going through, I was laughing equally as much, right? Because there was a ton of it in there.
I appreciate that coming out, because I remember at one point my first sergeant, I don't know if it was in there or not, but he said to me, he's like, "Hey, Shores, you're always fucking smiling," you know? And it was like, yeah, this is probably in July, probably around that time, and it's just like, I just do though, you know? I don't know.
You're right.
You look at the company's like picture that was done before we left, you know, on the hillside at San Mateo or whatever. We took a picture of it as a company, and I think it's like me and a couple others are smiling, and that's it. You know, everyone else is hard ass. You know,
right? Yeah, like, no smiles.
It's like, you know what? Like, it's too fucking short not to.
Yeah, yeah. It's the comedy is definitely there. Well, I want to still talk about a little bit of the transition and coming back, because that's a big portion of this book, right? Is you know, kind of. And at the risk of getting very personal, but you wrote it on page 133, and obviously I'll let you dive down onto the story. But you told your mother to let go of your fucking pants. Yeah. When she had grabbed a hold of your belt loop and kind of pulled you, was it a family picture or something of that nature?
I think we were at my sister's graduation for school or something. You know, it was like something for my sister. We were at, she just. Yeah, we were just standing there, and she grabbed my belt. You know, I must have had my shirt tucked in or something. And she grabbed a belt loop and kind of was like, "Hey, come over here," and grabbed it and pulled it in. And I was just like, I don't know, it was just that like click, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't even think about it. It just came out of my mouth, and it was like a dog biting. Yep. And I didn't even think about it until after. You know, I was like, "Oh God, that's an asshole." You know, that's not who I am, but. That is a part of me. It's kind of like the vet thing, right? Like, or the Marine thing. I'm a Marine. It's a part of me, but it's not who I am. Mm-hmm. And I think I was still in the process of detaching.
Yeah. How long, like, ballpark, how long was that incident?
That's probably like 2009 or 10. It's probably when I was starting to write this book, or like starting to write my ideas coming out, you know.
She was obviously taken back.
Yeah, you know, and I could tell I hurt her looking at her, you know, and it's like not at all what I wanted to have it as an outcome. Right. We were laughing, having fun. I was proud of my sister, but at the same time, I think about that, and I was in Minneapolis, which I don't like being downtown Minneapolis. You know, it's just not my favorite place. Mm-hmm. And it was a really busy, like, venue. And so I think I was just hyper aware, and so I was already in my mind peaked, and I hadn't learned great coping mechanisms at that point. You know, I was still on the like, I'll drink a shit ton and that'll help me cope. Oh yeah. So there's no good tools in my toolbox to help manage, and that's just one of the outcomes. Or you know, it's the same thing as like my broken my broken hand here when I punched the fridge. It's like that was my coping mechanism, you know.
Yeah, been there.
Now it gets cold, and now my fucking hand hurts. You know?
Yeah. I had a very similar scenario. I was back from the invasion, and we have a spot on the river here where boats gather, and people wade and drink and socialize and so on and so forth. And at the time, I thought I was fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and everybody's, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I happened to be standing there talking to my mother, who was sitting in a lawn chair, kind of like waist deep, chin deep, knee deep for me.
Yeah.
Drinking a beer and haha and laughing and this and that. And somebody clacked off a quarter stick of dynamite, like in the water, which is, like I said, not, pretty common occurrence, but it happened behind me, and it startled me to the point to where, both shoulders went up to my ears. I crushed the beer can, I really tensed up, because it scared the dog shit out of me, we'd only been back for like a month or so. And my mom started laughing, and probably not, not laughing at the fact that it scared me, not laughing at the fact of why I was so excitable.
Exactly.
Right. And my initial reaction, which I'm obviously not proud of, was when I saw her kind of giggle at my response was, I threw it at her. I said, "You think this is fucking funny?"
Yeah.
And I meant it, and obviously I was that's not what I should have said. That's not, she doesn't understand, even though the whole, right. And I apologized profusely. It wasn't for a minute, it took me a minute to calm down, but, so that struck a chord, when, I've been there, like, why did I say that?
Yeah, especially to your mom, right?
To your, the last person on the earth, that I should be aggressive to. But I think it speaks to, that you're just at a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
And it just takes nothing to go to that 11, and it takes a long, long time to process that stuff and to, like to use your words, to find the tools.
Yeah.
What in particular, what tools did you find that helped you?
I think realizing as I went through therapy at the VA, because there's an interesting story too, is like, I think I talked about it in there, but they wanted me to go through therapy every week, and they wanted me to do it where and I started out doing it this way, where I'd go there by myself and then come back, and my wife would be there waiting for me, and I'd be having dumped a bunch of shit, and like, you're still like, with therapy, it's kind of like I'm trying to think of how to best analogize this, but like, you're giving an analogy for it, but it's like, it's very hard up front. It's very difficult. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of time, depending on how much you've packed away. And so if you're not willing to be patient with yourself, which I'm not a very patient person, as I said earlier, but somehow I've like found that I can be for this, that until you get through all that tough stuff, you're not going to get the tools, because you have to lay it out on the table, And so it took me a while, and I would come home from this, and I would just be like a shell to my wife. I wouldn't want to talk about much. She would say, "How was it?" And I'd say, "Good. Mm-hmm. Let's go do something." And I drink. Because like, I'm not like in that session, I had come across a lot of very good information that can be used to help me down the road, but it was too exhausting to uncover all that after I made my hour drive back from the VA. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go talk about that again. I want to be done. So what I did is I said, I talked to I think she was an intern at the time, but I was like, I don't want to do this unless my wife's there, because I don't want to do this journey on my own, and she's a recipient of me when you're not there, like of my actions, my anger, my frustrations, my whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't want to shut her out anymore. And so my wife agreed to go, and I pitched it to this intern. She's like, "Well, I'm not really supposed to do this, but like we can go and try this." And so we started doing couples sessions where my wife was present, and I was doing like all the talking, and sometimes it would come up like, does he need X, Y, or Z? You know, do we need to lock his guns up? Is he going to kill himself?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like so there was tools that were really awesome, and because of that, I was able to complete that year long. It was a year of every week doing this session, and that unpacked everything. Like that was really the heavy shit that weighed on me, and so that gave me it gave two things, I guess. The tools were being able to share that experience with my wife in a controlled environment, so she could better understand me. And like there are times like she'd be crying with me, you know, and standing by my side for that. And so for her to better understand me, it made the home life so much better, because it's like that's the stuff that I would never have talked about otherwise, you know. And so that helped. And so those, just the tool for understanding, I count as one. And the other stuff is just being able to manage my anger and say like, okay, I'm feeling this buildup, and now I need a timeout. And so it sounded childish at the time, and I laughed when she told us to do this, but it was like just literally like do a timeout, you know. And I still use that still use that today, you know. That was 2009 or 10. You know? And so that. Like tools like that, just managing, like recognition, right?
Yeah, recognition of what I'm feeling instead of just default anger.
Yeah.
Right.
Default response, right? Because as Marines, we like black and white, you fix it, right? Problem, fix it. And we still have arguments about that, my wife and I, you know. I'm just very like, well, if this is your problem, like here's the solution.
Yeah, just fix it.
Just fix it.
Yeah, yeah. Just fix it. It's like, why is this hard?
Yeah. So just like that, you know, learning that shit.
Just make it better.
Yeah. Well,
it's not always
you're feeling this way is because you're making these poor decisions. It always goes over super well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, follow us for more tips.
Yeah, exactly. But that's it, man. Like it's work. Like if you're gonna go through therapy, if you want to get better and you're a veteran, it's work. But it's well worth it. You know.
Yeah.
It's like going through boot camp again, but to undo the walls that get put up to be effective in combat. You know. So.
Yeah, that is a great way to put it. It's kind of deconstructing. I had once again a similar experience where the VA psychologist and I did not want to be there at all. Like I just wanted to get my rating and kind of go away. Like the only thing I knew for sure is that I was fine and I didn't want any pills.
You know how to fix yourself.
Right. Which, you know, turns out I was only right on one thing: no pills. I don't want any pills.
And I'm with you on that. That's one thing that was a hard set for me, is I didn't want to be numb to life.
Yeah.
If I'm going to fix it, it's going to be without it. And some people need it, and that's fine. I'm not discounting that, but
100%.
Not to interrupt you, but like that was a huge thing for me.
Yep.
No pills.
No pills, and because I waited a couple years, and when I say a couple, I think it was like 5 or 6 before I actually started going through the process. You know. And so I had enough experience with other guys in the, you know, kind of in the system, if you will, and I had heard just the mountain of pills that they push, you know, and how it wasn't helping, and you know this and that, and so that was easy for me, right? And I said no pills, and guess what? The pills showed up anyways, and I just threw them in the trash. But I can remember the psychologist saying like, "You have been overtrained." He's like, the Marine Corps basically has overtrained your brain or trained your brain to work a certain way. And he goes, it's going to take 6 months or longer of, his words, not mine, intense therapy to kind of deprogram that brain. And at the time I was contracting overseas. And so I was still dependent on all of that quote unquote programming, you know, so I was having none of it. I was like, yep, cool. Whatever you say, you know what I mean? You know, for the PTSD diagnosis or whatever, which I think at the time, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, you know, because we would have been kind of right around the same time where you couldn't talk them out of it. You know, you couldn't talk them out of, like, you have acute PTSD. I was like, really? You know, like I don't feel like I do, you know, and he was like, well, on your drive here, he goes, did you look for IEDs? And I was like, no, I didn't look for IEDs, but if I see something on the side of the road, I think if I was overseas, that could be an IED. He's like, well, he goes, that's what I'm talking about. And I was like, well, if that's PTSD, then yeah, maybe I have it, you know, like it's just, you're conditioned, right? And I think that all of us have a natural aversion because we think any type of help is a sign of weakness.
Yeah, totally.
And once you get over that and like you said, lay everything out on the table. Now I've not done extensive one-on-one therapy. I have sat with psychologists before, like they started sending psychologists overseas to where we were at, and, case in point, every guy on the team, puffs up like a peacock and says, I'm not doing it. And the guy that's yelling the loudest is the one that I'm like, it's mandatory.
Yeah, you need that.
And the guy that peacocks the hardest is the one, sticking his head out saying, can I get another hour?
Yeah.
Give it a chance.
Yeah.
You would be surprised. Of course, it didn't hurt that the psychologists, 2 out of the 3 were attractive females.
Yeah.
The dude didn't have a line out his door. Go figure. But yeah, therapy. I think people, they don't. Part of that separation process. Like if we had the keys to the castle for a day, I think part of that separation process wouldn't just be, like you said, running around and getting the signatures and here's how you build a resume. How about some therapy?
Yeah, and it should be, it's weird because I get what the government's doing, right? You're hired as a Marine, right? You're being paid as a infantry fighting individual. And so they're going to get every minute of that time that they can to make sure it makes sense from the taxpayers' dollars to pay you. And like being an infantry fighting capable doesn't also include like getting mental health care, And so, but I think it would benefit at the end of the day, taxpayers are still paying it out from the far side on the VA. So why not do it, a month before they get out?
Correct.
2 months.
Yeah.
Especially like, did you see combat? You have to do mandatory 3 months of, everyone has to do it. And then that was another thing is I remember coming back from Ramadi and they're like, does anyone need to see a therapist? And everyone's like, no. Like,
right.
I probably should have just been mandatorily, given that, but no one's going to fess up and be the weak one, right? I'll just drink it away and go to the 31st Mew and call your wife when you're wasted. My wife, that's what my wife remembers of that deployment for me was like.
Really?
Yeah, the Call Me When You're Sober song by Evanescence was out.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is her, like she hears that song, she's like, Okinawa. Like I only called her when I was wasted because that's what we do, It's my second deployment,
Yeah, you're getting all up in the feels and you're
But I wouldn't even get in the feels. I'd just be drunk because it's like that's how we managed our.
Yep.
And then she'd say something and I'd be upset and hang up and because I didn't have feels. It was just like, no, you're wrong. Fuck you.
Yeah. It's the alcohol. That's a cultural thing. It's it just is.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that we can do a much better job, and who knows if it would help, right? Like
I don't know if they're doing. Are they doing? I don't know what transition's like right now.
I have no idea what transition's like right now. I would be shocked if they put kind of that much thought and effort into it. I mean, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
I know a lot of the. What do I want to say? Like. There are units that have, kind of on staff, on site, but do I think that they've got one for, Corporal so-and-so out of 1st Battalion 5th Marines?
Yeah.
Highly doubt it.
Yeah.
And they're probably the ones that need it the most, right? Because I think with that more operational maturity, it's almost like the more deployments you get under your belt, depending on those deployments, right? Obviously, and that the older you get and the more operational maturity, the easier it is to kind of process those things versus, I'm 18, I'm in boot camp, I'm in SOI, I've got 2 combat deployments, I'm getting out of the Marine Corps. I'm 20, maybe I'm 21 at that point. With how many quote unquote years, kind of shoehorned into a very short time frame. No shit, they're not processing it well.
Yeah.
Right?
You haven't had a chance to.
Correct. Yeah. Like you said, you don't have the tools,
And that's interesting too, just like thinking about the different, because I've had people come up to me like, I could never make it. Like I could never live my life carrying some of the weight that you guys have to, right? Like having combat or whatever. It's like, I could never do it. And it goes back to what I said earlier, like anyone's capable of violence. And yes, you could. And just because you haven't experienced it, like when people say, I haven't never experienced that amount of stress or that amount of, it's like, yes, you have. Your cap is my cap. Like we just, it's a different event, but we have it so good in this country that thankfully we don't have to have high caps. But that's still a stressful event for someone. And so like I do get when someone's like, oh, I'm getting therapy for X, Y, or Z, and it's like I look at that and it's like, what, really? Like that's it?
But to
them, that's their worst thing they experience. Like I'm grateful that that's the country we live in.
Yeah.
But also I'm afraid because like we need to make sure we have hard warriors ready.
Yeah, do you think do you ever catch yourself like, am I like the quintessential, I'm 45 years old, am I that crusty old fuck that's like, these younger, like I don't think so, like I hope not.
I hope I'm not. I probably am though.
I mean, I'm sure it ebbs and flows, it comes, I think there's definitely, you can definitely see, because I still, and I'm sure you do too, you have friends that are kind of still in the community.
Oh yeah.
And there are some differences.
Yeah.
There are some differences between kind of our generation and the younger.
Yep.
And I can sit here and say I don't necessarily know if I've seen it, but working in a instructor role or a schoolhouse role where you have, many courses going through. So like the collective, right? And you have this cadre of dudes that sees, quite a few people come through. And as a group, like guys of this age group that are just now starting, even though we've been here for, 16, 20 years, they can notice differences, subtle, very subtle differences, and not all of them are bad.
Yep.
Some of them are good, so yeah, maybe I'm foolhardy and, hopelessly optimistic. I don't think, I think the Marine Corps is always they're always going to make you into what a Marine is,
I hope so.
Yeah, me too.
It's so far so good.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Like SO, like when you went through the School of Infantry, how long was it? 8 weeks?
Oh yeah, I think it was 8 weeks.
It's 15 now.
Yeah. Wow.
It's 15. And the only reason I know that is because my oldest daughter, who, you couldn't pay her to join the service, started dating a Marine, which is, hilarious.
Yeah. You're like, no.
Yeah. I was like, I said, there's no escaping the Corps. You can't escape it. You grew up with it. It just, and he was in the School of Infantry, and I was like, well, you'll be home in 8 weeks. And he's like, no, it's 15. And I was like, what are they? Holy, what else are they doing? I don't know. I didn't know. Maybe they're going through, like, remember how they used to separate it between, like 11s were done in 8 and then weapons went on and kind of had that additional training on their weapon. Maybe this would be badass if this is the case. I mean, if everybody's getting all of it, if you're getting,
cross familiarization or whatever.
Yeah, SAW 240, you name it. They don't even have toes anymore. Like I'm dating myself, but if you came out of there truly, well versed in all organic infantry weapon systems, then make that fucking school 6 months long.
Yeah.
Like imagine how effective those young guys would be if they kind of were functionally dangerous on everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They could be doing drill for those extra weeks. I have no idea. I'd have to ask him. But yeah, man. Well, I feel like this should be like a 3-part series.
I appreciate it, man.
It's very, very, very powerful book. You talk towards the end about how instrumental that your wife was in your I don't want to say recovery, but transition.
Yeah.
She seems, I'm anxious to meet her. Like, obviously I met her at the wedding, but I'm anxious to, sit down and talk to her as well, because that obviously speaks volumes. How long have you guys been together?
Well, we started dating on September 11th.
September
11th. Yeah. And then we've been married. It'll be 20 years this October.
Congratulations. So, that is fantastic. It's what that's a statistic unto itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not
she's way better than me than I to her. Like, she's a better person. So,
a glutton for punishment.
I don't know why she's with me, but she is. I love her so much. Yeah,
it's that's incredible, and the fact that, like I said, that you put that in the book, you know, like that's that needs to be talked about as well. You know, it's a group effort, it's a family effort. You know, I had my daughter on the show just a couple days ago, maybe it was last week. You know, it all blends together, and you know, hearing her perspective of what I was like during those times.
Yeah, that's wild.
You know, was not flattering.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, you kind of, it takes a change of perspective to realize, you know, how you are affects everyone around you.
Yep.
You know, and I think it's imperative, and you talk about it in the book a lot, to, you know, to realize that. You know, because I think the tendency to look inwards and kind of be selfish, you know, like when you talked about, you know, calling off the wedding.
Yeah.
You know, and once again, I read that and I was like, I know exactly what he's feeling and why that seems like a logical option.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a very, very poor place to be.
Yep.
But it seems so like. It made sense. Yep. It made sense. It's so self-destructive, and at the same time, right? It feels real.
Well, it's coming from a place of love, which I thought was love, because it's like, well, you don't deserve to be with someone like me, and I'm not going to be okay after this if you make it back. So, like, let's just call it off, because it's not going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I'm glad she's stubborn.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, what else? I mean, what else do we want to talk about? I definitely don't want to give the whole thing away, because I got 90%.
I don't know, man. It's been good to like talk more on and hear from you some of the things that that you found stuck out. You know, because it's like, I wrote this. I hope it helps someone at the end of the day. You know, I hope it changes some views as to what's really being asked of young men and women to go to combat. And I hope that those that are going to be fighting in it get some kind of benefit from this, you know.
I don't see how you couldn't.
That's like I felt very selfish, right? You know, it's a book that I wrote about my experiences, and it feels like a very selfish thing to do. And it took for so many years to not, like, I was like, why would anyone want to know about this? And who the fuck am I? Why am I so special? And I'm not. But I've been given an opportunity for some reason to write it the way I did. And I hope that it makes sense and helps. Like, that's my intention. And I felt very selfish putting it out there. And I was like, am I just another, you know, guy wanting to tell a story that thinks, you know, other people should read? It's very self-conscious, you know. Mm-hmm. It took a lot to get, you know, finally convince myself that I had a story that was worth sharing, and I hope that comes across. You know? It
screams it. It screams it. Very, very humble. Like, and we live, you know, a lot of that going around these days. We live in an age now where, you know, sensationalizing, like, hey, the truth is good enough. Yep. You know, and sensationalizing and, you know, turning fish stories. Okay, I get it. You know, misremembering something. Yep, 1000%. That's going to happen, right? But everything in this book, you know, screamed humility, caution, and kind of education. Yeah. Right. Good. Not, you know, I hope, you know, Michael Bay turns this into the next action flick. Like, that's, you know, so. It was very, very beneficial. I don't see how someone could read it and not benefit from it. You know, whether they've been through these experiences or they're getting ready to go, or it's potentially, you know, getting ready to go. Yeah. Very, very beneficial. You know, very, very beneficial. And I enjoyed it. Like I said, I enjoyed it immensely, even the parts that were very, very difficult for me, you know, because it's taken me back, right? Yeah. And you know, I applaud you. I think it's fantastic. You did a fantastic job, bro.
Thank you.
Tell everyone when it's going to come out, where they can find it, and everything that about you. I know you have your website. Like, tell everybody everything.
Yeah, so website, it's countingondeath.com or myname.com. You can find it on Amazon, Audible, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Walmart, like a bunch of, basically anywhere books are sold. It comes out. It's supposed to come out, I think, on the 21st or September 4th. There was a shipping issue, so I don't know.
Awesome.
It'll be out at some point. But Audible, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to come out tomorrow, the 19th.
Sick.
So, we'll see. But yeah, I appreciate everyone's support. So far, I appreciate you having me on to talk about it. It's
my honor.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on. Yeah. Buy it, pre-order it. It's, you will not regret it. Josh Shores, everybody, thank you very much for coming on. And I think it's probably time we should go get some dinner.
All right, man. Thank you, Dagan. I really appreciate it.
All right. Bye, everybody. Stay mobile. Thank you.